'Cause I'm yours to keep if you want to.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got the Middle Eastern Kanye West in the building. No, all jokes aside. Thank you for coming through, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. Man.
Super excited to do this with you. You've been a big inspiration for me the whole time since I met you.
Wow.
It's been awesome to just watch you work.
Thank you know, man. Same, bro.
Yeah,
same.
Just the amount of output that you have is incredible.
Wow.
As a creative person, I love that.
You, man.
You know, a lot of people don't make it over the hump to like, I made something and I'm putting it online and people can experience it. You know what I mean? A lot of people just create and put that shit in a can somewhere. Yeah. And so it's like to see you just constantly creating this really amazing art at a high quality level for as long as I've known you, and like as much as you love it, because I love it. You know what I mean? It's nice to connect with people who love it.
Yeah.
You know?
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Nah, same, bro. Like you've been a huge, like even right now we were just talking about like your ability to like get it done always and evolve.
Yeah.
And watching that evolution at you, like you doing it, and like you were just saying, like not waiting around for nobody and just getting it done. That's the American dream.
Yeah, I mean, shit, dude, it's just modern movement, you know? That's where we're at. But really the goal of this for me is to just go through to somewhat of a story-ish way of going through your life.
Yeah.
So we'll just start with your full name.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is David Hassan Kafaf.
Okay. Are you named after anybody?
An uncle who is an alcoholic and homeless.
Okay. Crazy.
Which led me to never take a sip of alcohol.
No way.
No.
Huh. That's
because
wild.
of that.
Yeah.
I never wanted to. Not he's a good guy, but
I mean, dude, when those things get a hold of you, it's a little rough to make the recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would always see that, and I was like, yeah. And I also realized at a young age I had a very addictive personality. So I always was like, and I just like up until recently, because I'm recently born again, but before then, I've just always wanted to be in control too much to ever give it up.
Sure.
And I never could understand why people would want to give that up.
Yeah.
You know, with being drunk or with being high or whatever. And now I really realize that it is a spirit. People talk about liquor as spirits. You see, you know, it says liquor and spirit store.
Yeah.
And they really are spirits. They really, and so is anger. I realized that like anger is abnormal.
Yeah.
You're not like, especially as men, we're not supposed to have anger.
Huh.
Like it's literally a spirit that made a home in us when we were young because our mothers traumatized us. But that's a whole nother spiel.
We'll get back to that.
Yeah. So
where were you born?
I was born in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah. My father was born in Baghdad, Iraq.
Okay.
And his father was killed by Saddam Hussein.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, when he was 7 years old, and then him and his 15 brothers and sisters, and the mother became political refugees, and they fled Iraq, and they lived in Jordan, Egypt, Syria. They were basically on the run for like 7 years, and then they got to England, and then eventually America.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Dude, that is amazing. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's a mess. Which led to, well, I mean, I'm jumping ahead, but that's why the first album that I put out with Dame was called Mesopotamia, because Iraq was Babylon, which was Mesopotamia, which was the first civilization. Yeah, whatever.
Sure.
So,
yeah, civilization's better.
So I was like, yo, it's kind of ill because it's like the first album, first civilization, you know, my father, you know, so I was just like, that's a cool first name. And now the second album is going to be called The Second Coming.
Okay. Crazy.
I was like, that's a funny second album title. But but Florida, yeah. And I'm actually thinking about moving back to Florida the way the crime has been here in LA, and just I think Gavin Newsom is Satan.
Yeah, it's not looking good here.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck is going on.
And it's like, you know, not to get political, but it's like, man, I don't think people understand. Like, look around. Look at any city that's ran by like Democrats, and it's like, look, Portland, Chicago, Seattle, Minneapolis, like it's just a mess.
Yeah, they're allowing like the crazy, almost like self-regulated environment that's not showing that it's working out for anybody
At all.
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, what do you think's going to happen when you release 77,000 convicted felons? They just did in California like a couple months ago. And then you say that if you steal anything under $1,000, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. It's insane.
What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah. When you look at that, it's just a weird, I've been zooming out on, that's its own long conversation. COVID's a whole nother conversation. The two of those things just like, it's so crazy, man. When you just look at what is going on over this time span and why it's happening, it's clear that somebody or some people have some form of agenda to,
Yes.
if in LA in those situations, if it's to drive down real estate prices, if it's to whatever the plays are that are at hand here, there is some shit that is like happening specifically for a reason, because there's no logic to, oh cool, we'll just release all these people. Oh cool, we'll just make these laws a non-issue. Oh cool, we'll just like, I don't fucking know, man.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And now I just saw a thing in Oakland where people are like, I have to literally make a sketch or comedy about this. I'm sure people already are. In Oakland, now they're literally parking their car and leaving their trunk open to show that there's nothing in it.
Oh, man.
Just so that no one breaks
the windows.
Yeah,
Oh, my
because they don't want to pay to get their trunk
Yeah.
or window fixed. So they're literally keeping the car open like, look, there's nothing in it. Just don't break nothing. That's what we've resorted to.
Yeah.
We've gotten to the point to where that now is a reality.
Yeah.
Like, fam, like,
Yeah.
are we in the Twilight Zone or
I don't know
what?
where we are. I don't know where we are.
And if you say anything, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a male chauvinist, whatever. And it's like, I was talking to someone. I was like, man, you realize that, like, not that the Me Too movement didn't have some benefits, right?
Of course.
I think it did.
Yeah,
But-
dude, a lot of that stuff was going on for far too long.
Yes,
too.
and I agree, and I want to make it clear that I agree, women. But the Me Too movement, cancel culture, all these different things,
Yeah.
was to silence the man, remove the man from the conversation. Even abortion, like, I know we're talking like some hot topics, but the point is, like, even abortion, the fact that like a man has no say on if their baby gets killed. Now, I'm not like I'm not feeling bad for the guy, because the guy shouldn't be having sex out of wedlock with somebody or whatever. But to not have a say is just crazy. But all this was to like remove the man from the conversation, silence the man. You can't and should not say anything. And then they come in with all this crazy agenda because they know women and children ain't gonna do nothing. So once you remove the men, they can bring in any agenda they want.
Yeah.
And guess what? Stalin did it. Hitler did it. Saddam Hussein did it. And what they all did too was remove the guns. So anytime you start hearing these people talk about take away the Second Amendment in the midst of all this crazy stuff, I'm just like, hello?
Yeah.
Like,
The steps are
do we
literally.
yeah, they're in front of you. And it's like people want to like say whatever they want about Trump, but it was like, at least Trump was saying like we need to bring jobs back to America. There's no reason why Apple, my favorite human, Steve Jobs, American founded company, the most American thing in the world, in the garage. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you just said, we getting it out the mud, like just doing it. And y'all have to make y'all product in China? Y'all can't just make it in America and give American job. I understand there's a profit margin, but damn, like you could, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I don't know why that became. I mean, obviously we know why that became such a thing, but I also don't know why that became such a thing.
yeah, it's like, and so like even with that whole thing, it's just like, because soon, guess what? We're gonna wake up one day and guess who's gonna be the superpower?
I mean, I feel like they're already leading the race. Just
Yeah, they're already like saying like, yo, like it's about to be us and Russia.
yeah.
So like, understand that. And it's cool. I'm not saying that America needs to be like whatever, but it do, because if people care about freedom and they care about God or whatever, guess what they don't care about? Guess who don't care about that stuff? Communist China.
Yeah.
You can't believe in God or have no freedom. So people think that they like these concepts until it actually happens.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be upset.
Yeah.
And be like, what? This isn't what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, you should have you shouldn't have been like wearing Karl Marx t-shirts while like, jogging and stuff. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I feel you, man. A lot of these things are crazy frustrating, and it's hard to have conversations with anybody who won't get offended by your point of view and will actually sit and have a conversation and work through some shit with you if you're in disagreement or feeling any other kind of way. Like, it's a weird time to be a human. It's a really weird time to be a human, man. I'm frustrated by it as an intellectual person. I feel trapped a lot of the time. I feel like I'm looking at a world that just makes no fucking sense to me in any natural like capacity, that life should just be like so far evolved in these ways that there is no possible way we'll be where we're at currently.
Yeah.
Like, our government should not be what it is at the moment with how much time we've had into this fucking like actual structure.
Right.
Just at this point, I mean, even on a small scale, COVID shouldn't be what it is at this point after this much time.
Yeah.
This many restrictions still happening, this many problems still happening. Now there seems to be like backtrack on if the vaccine's actually making people catch it more than people who don't have the.
Isn't that amazing?
It is. I mean, look, it's all since it's all happening in real time. I understand there are problems. There are things we have to learn from. It just feels like it's a very uncoordinated effort. It obviously became politicized, so that like fucked everything up because it's a this way or that way issue, which it shouldn't be because it's literally just a health issue that concerns the whole fucking world.
Absolutely.
So any problem you have, I feel like, gets immediately split into those issues. Then it gets fragmented even more. Then you get crazy motherfuckers on one side of the table trying to do something, crazy motherfuckers on the other side of the table. Everything from the spectrums to the middle, and everybody's just feeling like, I don't know what I can talk to, who I could talk to, what I could say.
Yeah.
It's a weird time, man. It's a really weird time, but that's why I've been enjoying this so much. Is like it's kind of my bubble to strip all that shit away and just be like, cool, let me learn about a person, like their story. And this has already been crazy. I had no idea about your family history like that. Like, first sentence is like, as you were saying that, I was just sitting here like,
I know, yeah.
Like, holy shit, man, that's wild.
Well, and not to, I know I don't want to segue into all the politics, but the reason why I'm saying that is because my father really did come from that, from Iraq, from Saddam Hussein tyranny. So it's like I'm one generation removed from understanding what that is. Yeah. And I think a lot of Americans are like, and me too, I'm entitled too, but I'm saying like people who don't realize that this could happen. Yeah. They're so like this, nothing like that can ever happen to America. You know what I mean? But guess what? It happens in other places right now. Yeah. There is like full on communism tyranny. And it's like, I don't understand why you hate America so much. Like, okay, I get it. It's not perfect, but like, it's like, where else you want to go? Yeah. Like, so.
Well, that's the conversation. That's a whole nother conversation. That's a conversation I've been having all throughout the last like 2 years because I've been feeling further and further disappointed by this country and further disappointed by the future of this country. And that makes me really look at where in the world can I go? It's a conversation I've been having actually long before COVID because I've just, for the sake of traveling and getting outside of the country and having different life experiences, that's been something that's been like actively on my mind. I've been a world traveler since I was like a young kid. So it's always been something that, it's always been something that's been visible to me that there's other ways of life. And then in like March last year, I started dating a girl that's in Australia. Really? That I've never met before.
You still haven't met her?
Still haven't met her. It's been entirely online for almost 20 months.
Get out of town.
We never FaceTimed this whole time.
Do you know she's real?
Phone calls, pictures.
Amazing.
But just, we talk on the phone all the time. It's been the best, it's probably been the best relationship of my life. Just on a human-to-human mental connection level, conversations, the way we see the world. She's like politically ambitious, wants to eventually be Prime Minister of Australia. She's a city planner. Like, I've learned about all that from what her job is like. I mean, from the outside, I can hardly say I've learned about all that, but it's opened my mind in a lot of ways. Australia is a place that like the government provides the healthcare for all their citizens. That's one like baseline thing that to me makes so much sense fundamentally, because it's the government's job to keep you healthy. It fucks them over if you are unhealthy. And then you look at the American diet and what 90% of people, I would say, in this country eat, which is like fast food, shit, things that like
I was just gonna ask you.
Literally fucking kill you. And there's other countries. I mean, the UK does it. I'm sure it's probably like all the Queen's countries, but like I'm sure Canada probably does it as well, where they don't even import American goods as far as like certain foods go. They change the formulas because their government deems it unhealthy for their citizens to eat. Like, we're living in a weird place where it doesn't seem like people give a fuck about like the health, the nutrition, the environment, animals. Education seems to be like falling away, supporting people like for arts and creative. Like, it's just, when I look at like, I think the initial like political understanding of that from like got my brain turning was the Michael Moore movie where I forgot the name of it, but he traveled all around the world and was like, oh, what's your, government like? What's your, healthcare like? Oh, you get this much time on vacation. Oh, you get this much time paid leave if you have a kid. Like, there are things that just fundamentally make so much sense that we are at the back of the fucking line for.
But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Is it my responsibility to pay for you if you chose unhealthy things your whole life?
No, but that's a really difficult conversation to have when you realize, like, I mean, I would say a majority of my friends are black. Majority of my friends come from, like, I would say poverty type backgrounds, just because a lot of people from music have that type of life. And that's been like all my friendships that I've met all these people from the last 15 years and learned a whole different side of the world. Cause I grew up like middle class, never had to worry about shit, and have tons of friends who didn't have that situation, nothing close to it. And it sounds like it was way more difficult to have access to healthy food, whether that was geographically, that they couldn't just like walk across the street to Erewhon and be like, oh, cool, I got this shit that's like locally farmed and like produced as organic as possible and like as least amount of pesticides, and to unaffordable. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I can't go spend $20 on lunch, $30 on lunch every time I want to have a meal, or, which is someplace like Erewhon. I mean, not that you have to have a full-on cooked meal. I mean, sure, you could just eat produce and, have like celery and arugula and some vegetables, and like, it's not going to run you up like a crazy bill. I guess we're just not really educated to eat like that.
Right.
But I've, been made aware of like food deserts, and like that was something I didn't understand. But like in a lot of areas, there's like literally geographically way more distance to like a health food grocery store than there is in like other wealthier parts of town, which inherently sets you up to not have access to eat healthier, to not thrive in like your own health choices, so there's two sides to that, and I'm sure like it's way deeper than probably anything you or I know to the complexity of that.
Like Michael Moore to make a movie and he fat as hell, and you telling me that I gotta pay for you to make bad choices.
Yeah.
Because you fat.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's a tricky one, and some people have that issue just off like straight medical, like thyroid issues or metabolism
I don't mean to be
issues.
disrespectful. But what I'm saying is I just think that it really comes back down to family.
Yeah.
And making sure the family structure is together. And if the family structure is together, a lot of those things don't happen.
Yeah.
Even the other stuff you were talking about. So we got to bring the family back.
Yeah, I agree.
And if we have the family back, all these other side effects and symptoms go away when you take care of the root of the cold.
Yeah.
And, so like, also, that's the thing, like, and I don't want to keep making it about political, but Lyndon B. Johnson, him introducing a welfare program for all families, white, black, it removed the father from the household. And it made the woman be like, well, I don't need a man. The government's the father. So, the family being destroyed leads to all this other stuff, because before that was the case, people was even poor, quote unquote poor people, was like, farming and like lived on, it was a very different thing pre the 60s. And it really has a lot to do with all those issues. But we also got to have, we got to stop having children out of wedlock. The percentage of children that are being born out of wedlock is like out of control. And again, it's for all races, but, so we gotta really get to the root of why all these other things happen, because all this other stuff, people are making money off of it. These people are like, I hate to say this, but it's like a lot of people are even, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for even saying this, but like a lot of people are race hustlers and ambulance chasers. They don't even care really about like the community or the culture. They just care about like, oh, this thing happened, let me go and, like Maxine Waters, she's been running Los Angeles for 1,000 years, it seems like. And, people be happy because she like extends whatever like projects or whatever while she living in, she not living there, but it's like, she's like, oh, I did this for, so a lot of it is just, we got to bring the family back together, man, because the family is, when the family's destroyed, all this other stuff is like, gets crazy. And it's sad, man. It's really sad.
Yeah, we're just living in a crazy ambush time, man. There's a lot of things to process as a person.
Yeah.
Well, shit.
Sorry. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of. I know we were super segued and like, yeah.
No, it's like, look, there's no format, so to speak. I mean, I'll keep trying to bring us back to a certain story, but it's a lot of just displaying what's on your mind too. Getting to know like how you are as a person outside of just your specific story. But your story sounds crazy. So I want to double back on that. So your dad was killed in Baghdad. Your grandpa.
My grandfather, yeah.
And your dad moved from Baghdad to England?
Well, for about 7 years, they were basically on the run in the Middle East with the Kurdish people.
Yep.
They're kind of like neutral.
Okay.
They're not like on really either side. Because what happened was my grandfather was prime minister. He was in the parliament.
Oh, wow.
He was like government official.
No way.
So when Saddam came in with dictatorship, he was like, yo, everybody got to go.
Yeah.
Like, I'm coming in like strong. And so that's why he got killed. So I just want to make that clear that it wasn't just like, it was a specific hit because he was part of the parliament, the government.
Yeah. That's insane too.
Yeah. So for about 7 years, they, again, it was him and 15 brothers and sisters because, they got mad kids like out there. And yeah, they lived in Egypt for 2 years, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan. Because I even remember asking him, I was like, yo, you live next to the pyramids? Like, how crazy is that? And he was like, it's kind of overrated. And I was like, yeah, but you lived there for 2 years. So it's like, you probably just got, he was like, nah, it's really not that great. But I'm sure like his living conditions were
great,
a little crazy.
Yeah.
But but then they ended up in England. And I guess because of like kind of like who they kind of were, that they sort of made it right. But it took a long time, took 7-8 years. But he went to like a really good boarding school in England.
Okay.
Like a boys boarding school. And he got like a really good education because like if you hear him talk, he don't have like he just talk regular. Like he don't have no broken English or nothing like that. So then he came to Florida because he wanted to be a pilot, but he realized he didn't have good vision. And I think, so anyway, then he met my mom
in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay. So they had you in Florida. You have brothers and sisters?
I have a sister.
Okay. Younger, older?
Older.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how long do you live in Florida?
Well, I've been here now like Well, I came out here. I first came out here when I was like 18.
Okay.
And I ended up meeting Nick Cannon, and I started interning for Nick, and that was a really bizarre, interesting time, and I appreciate it because it was like the first, like I remember he took me to the what's the Vegas fashion thing, Magic.
Yep.
I went to Magic with him for the first time, and he had this clothing line called P&B Nation.
Yeah, I remember.
And there was a store on Melrose.
Yep.
That's where I met him, actually, outside of that store. And it was a funny story because I had a Beat CD, and his security guard was like in this Rolls Royce, and I was like, yo, can I play these beats? And he ended up playing it in the car, and I was like, yo, this is like lit. My hearing beats in the Rolls Royce. And then anyway, long story short, he just was like, yo, come back tomorrow and start, working here. So I interned for a while, and that was cool because I ended up meeting a lot of cool people through that. The main person that I kind of met through that in a weird way was Malik Youssef.
Huh.
And I want to make it clear on here that I love Malik. You've met Malik, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Many times, man. I spent time with him, with you, with Tish, with Vic mainly recently.
Yeah.
All last year, he was working with Vic and I. We were working on some music.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to just make it clear because I had did a Big Boy interview with Dame when the first album came out, and this first time I'm doing like a big interview, right? And it's like 6 a.m. There's bright lights. Dame Dash is talking, so if I don't hurry up and talk, I know he gonna cut me off. So I'm like, so I mentioned Malik, but I guess I guess I didn't mention him like with the reverence that I should have. And I remember he called me and was like, yo, people are saying that you mentioned me in some interview. And I was like, yeah, I did. I'm like happy about it because I'm like, he gonna be proud of his Padawan. Yeah, I'm like, yo, because Malik, like for years, I'm talking about, we like lived together, so anyway, and he's like, yeah, well, I ain't watched it, but the way people are saying you mentioned me was foul. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't know. I don't remember. Like, I'm sorry if that was the case, but I definitely remembered that I needed to say you because you were vital in the story. And, but anyway, so I'm just saying that because, because I love Malik, and, there's probably no way that I meet Dame without Malik. I mean, he was a huge part of the. So anyway, so I just want to say that because if he sees this, or if I can send this to him, but
yeah, man, Malik is an incredible person.
Amazing. I mean, he raised me like for years, and so. But anyway, yeah, I know I'm segueing and going crazy, but and I have the next single that's coming out is with Vic Mensa. He jumped on the. You know what he jumped on? I redid The Devil's Playground.
Oh wow.
No, I got to play it for you after this. It's so crazy. And I need to find those keys that you played.
Sure.
Maybe I need to add that.
I probably got them upstairs.
Yeah, but he just sent his verse over. And but anyway, so I love Malik, and, very, very appreciative of him. But how do we start talking about Malik?
Oh, you were telling me about the Nick Cannon store, and then
You're right.
meeting Malik there.
So then that's how I met Malik. Yeah, and it's so funny because the way I got his email was a dude that worked for Nick. His name was Godson, who I also haven't seen in a while and I love. But he used to send these. He worked in the store, so he had like the email list of everyone who bought something from P&B Nation and like wrote their email. So he used to send these like Sunday. He's like very Christian or religious. He would send these Sunday like blessings out to the email blast. And one Sunday he didn't hide the emails.
Whoop.
Whoop. So I was like, yo, that's Malik Yusef. I know who that is.
Yeah.
Like, he be working with Ye. So I remember I sent something, and I sent the beat, and then like 2-3 days later, Burundi, you know Burundi?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and Burundi hit me, and he's like, yo, Malik wants to use that beat, and it's going to be this album called Kanye West and Malik Yusef Presents Good Morning, Good Night, and you're going to be on the album. And I'm like,
Get
what?
the fuck out of here.
Yeah, and then he's like, and then like 2 days after that, Burundi's like, yo, GLC and Really Though are on the song now. And I was like, you know, and I'm such a fan. So I'm like, yo, I know GLC and like, yeah, Spaceship and We Major, Really Though. And I was just texting Really Though too. That's my man. And so yeah, so that was like, that was really cool. Like the first, like,
dude, those are two amazing sequences to just getting lucky to planting a little seed and seeing that shit just sprout and grow in a beautiful way. You know, I can't imagine how many people have missed those opportunities in terms of like, just if it's Nick Cannon or any other person you name being like, oh man, let me play you my beat CD.
Yeah.
No, I don't have time for that today, bro.
Right.
Blind email to somebody like Malik. Oh yeah, man, check this out.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't have time for that shit, bro. Especially at that point, Malik's like on top of the world. I'm sure that was like just after, I think he did Stronger and a couple other records for Kanye, or is this or before?
Was right after, this was like 808s.
Okay.
This was a while ago. So yeah, this was like.
Well, yeah, he did even before that. He did, I think it was on.
Crack Music on Late Registration.
Yeah,
he's doing a poem on there.
Oh, wow.
He's like his. You know what I mean? And he wrote all Kanye's verses.
He was producing on, I don't know why I can't think of the name of the third album. That's driving me crazy.
Yeah, Graduation.
Yeah, Malik produced like I think 4 or 5 songs in there, or co-produced, or however you want to splice it.
I mean, since the inception, since College Opera. I mean, you know what I mean? And it's like,
but to connect with those guys like that, right out the gate, and have that whole thing roll through to like, oh, doing this with Kanye, GLC, really, like that's amazing, man.
No, it was like, it was nuts. And then it literally, I remember I wasn't even in LA when all that, because I had left after the internship with Nick. I had went back to Florida.
Okay.
And I'm like, and he's like, yo, we're going to do an album release party and all these people going to be there. And I'm like, yo, this is going to be, you know, like.
I got to be there.
Yeah, because I remember the album came out and this was like right before like the booklets and everything. This was like the last hoorah. And I remember opening the booklet, like seeing my name, and then like the next track, like No ID produced it. I'm like, what the?
Yeah.
And that was really probably the moment where like my father and like my mom probably was like, oh, this is like real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
This is like
that's a big moment.
That was the first, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even though I ain't get no money, I still ain't get no money from nothing. But I seen this thing at DJ Khaled today. He was just like, bro, I've worked for free my whole life. I ain't never feel nothing more than what Khaled said to that.
Yeah.
He's like, I've been working for free my whole life.
Yeah.
But
I feel that deeply. Yeah.
But yeah, so I get to the album release party, and I'm like, you know, everyone's gonna be there, and then like it just wasn't that. Like it wasn't like, and I'm like super bummed. And then I remember like 2 months after that, 3 months after that, Malik's like, yo, are you in LA? And I was like, yeah, I'm here. He's like, yo, you wanna go to the studio with me and Kanye? And I'm like, duh. And yes. He's like, cool, let's go get breakfast or whatever. So we actually got breakfast. You remember the spot Fiddler?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's gone now. Sad, but.
Oh man.
Yeah, but we went to Fiddler, and then right after that we went to the studio. And this was 2 days after the Taylor Swift moment. Wow. And so I'm like, of all the days that I gotta meet him, like, you know, and yeah, but it was amazing. And I actually snuck video. I actually have video of that thing and the first time we meet him.
Wow.
And like, which also I don't know if anyone knows, but but Yeah, but that was a amazing. Yeah. So yeah, that's I love Malik, man. He's the man.
He really is.
Yeah.
We'll get back. I'm sure he'll come back around. But in Florida, what was life like growing up there?
It was awesome. Like, I think about like even having kids, and like I definitely wouldn't want to have a family, I don't think, out here.
Yeah, me either.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
not for more than like the first 2-3 years, but even that, I'm like, I could not be here and be totally fine.
Yeah, like I just feel like Florida was great to to be a kid and just like, yeah, it was awesome. And yeah, and the way things are now, like I said, I'm thinking about potentially going back because just, there or Texas or, but everybody's going to Texas.
Yeah.
So it's like but even Wyoming, like I spent a lot of time in Wyoming last year. And I mean, I haven't spent time there in the winter time.
Yeah,
so,
it's a different animal.
Like right now,
yeah,
I would probably not agree, but there's definitely something like, peaceful and just,
much slower life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much. I mean, you have a lot more nature, a lot more outdoors. You have a whole different environment than, especially being here. That's the one thing. Like, I feel a weird tension every time I'm flying back into LAX and seeing the city start from like, whatever you start descending and you see like Inland Empire or something like that, and you're just flying over city for like 45 minutes at like 300 miles an hour. You know what I mean?
Wow,
like, it's just
true.
you just so much city. And it's just like so little nature. I grew up in Utah, so for me, it's a very different environment. It's probably similar to Wyoming. Mountains, trees, lots of land, lots of space between neighbors. Suburbs are big open spaces, not, the same house built 1,000 times over on the same street, back to another house, same street, same thing.
Cutter.
It's like being here is just a weird environment for me when you refer back to stuff like that, or like think about having kids, having a family, like where you'd want to be.
Yeah.
Especially now, that's kind of at the beginning of our conversation, like looking at LA, like I don't see a bright future here.
Right.
I don't see this as a place that, as expensive as it is, as tricky as it is to navigate with the business laws of you could be open, you could be closed, you're open again, closed again. This, like, it's causing too many waves of chaos to like make staying here make sense. And now if we're looking at, another wave of another variant of COVID might be causing another lockdown and another restriction and another, it's like, how many times are we going to run that same play and wind up back here again and be in this confusing zone? And I get that all this is happening in real time and there's not necessarily a solid path forward, but at some point, man, like we could look back at even just the history we've had in the last 20 months to say like, okay, this hasn't really played out that well. Like we should be out of this. Like, people are mentally damaged from this environment. People are physically damaged from this environment. People are losing their livelihood, their work. It's creating a lot of damage that's not just directly deaths from specifically COVID. And how long are we going to stay subjected to that? Like, that's the thing that just, when I look, like, even short, medium term, a year to 3 years in LA, like, it doesn't seem like it's getting better.
Yeah.
So I feel you on looking to move. What part of Florida did you grow up in?
I grew up like close to Tampa.
Okay. So
Shout
north.
out to Tom Brady.
Yeah. And what was like, I'm assuming, was it lots of beach time? What was your kind of childhood like?
No, not a lot of beach time. Funny enough, I really can't even swim, but just like just like regular, like I played a lot of basketball or whatever, but
okay.
Just felt like regular. I don't know how regular your life could be, especially, like I think about kids that go to Fairfax High School, and I'm just like, their perception of life has to be so skewed. It's like you walk outside of your high school and you're like seeing like full blown, like highest level of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just cars or like billboard, just all this stuff. And I couldn't have imagined walking out of my high school and seeing. I walked out of my high school. There's nothing.
Yeah.
There was
me
just
too.
like you said, just land
Yeah.
for miles and
Yeah.
alligators.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like to walk out and like to think that they're so like overstimulate. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's like it's just crazy. Like
Yeah, I mean, you have like one of the hottest like shopping like corners, whether it's like the Beverly to Melrose like section of Fairfax, which has been insane. Whether it's like you said, like the cars, every car you could imagine, car show, going to the restaurants, going to the shops, going to be out and socialize there. Nas having a restaurant down the street from your high school, like that's some wild
I
shit.
went there 2-3 days ago.
It's great
for the first time ever.
Oh, I've been there a bunch.
I
Yeah,
had
sweet chicken's awesome.
vegan chicken and waffles.
Huh. Okay.
It was amazing.
Huh. Okay.
It was amazing.
I haven't done any of like the alternate meat stuff
Yeah.
yet. I mean, I like if I'm going like I just like I'm a big fan of like, oh cool, it's a veggie burger. There's vegetables in this like patty, and I could see that, and that's
Yeah.
cool. You know what I mean? I don't need it to be fake meat to like pretend I'm eating meat.
Yeah.
I can just be cool with eating a veggie burger.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
And like that's cool. It's delicious still.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't need to replace
Yeah,
anything.
fake you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, for me,
Yeah.
for me. So were you basketball? Were you playing video games? What kind of, when did you start working?
Like on music?
No, just in general.
Oh,
like first
I've
jobs.
never had a job.
Never.
No.
Wild.
Well, I mean, I feel like I work like a slave, but
Yeah.
I mean, as far as like a
Regular 9 to
Yeah,
5
no.
type. None of it.
nah, it's funny because like I do want to say this too about the never ending COVID thing. The thing is, it's also like the Cold War or the War on Terror.
Yeah.
Invisible enemies.
Yeah. Of course.
They like things that never
Yeah.
end.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, no, I was playing basketball a lot and just just like run around, like I remember when I was really young, people would bike ride and I never learned how to ride a bike. So I just run with them riding a bike.
Yeah.
So I got real fast. And so just regular, but I think there wasn't any like, you had to be creative,
Sure.
right? Like that's what I'm saying with the whole LA thing. Not saying that, kids aren't still, skateboarding, doing regular stuff, but I think when you don't have like a lot of over, stimulation, it's like you have to just be creative.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's kind of like what hip hop started as, like, if you didn't really know how to play instruments and you didn't really have much, all you had was a turntable and, you just got super creative.
I mean, shit, dude, you had guys, you look back at like old footage of any of the OGs and you'll see it's either like Biggie, that video is just always like present to me because it's such a great video of him rapping on that stoop. And it's
in
like,
front of the grocery store.
but it's like he could keep time in such a way that like you didn't even need somebody. But you see all these videos. I'm trying to think of who like were some of like the older ones that I remember. But you just see guys like with a pencil in their hand and sitting at a table and just like literally just making like a beat and rapping. And it was like that was the way that people creatively were. Okay, cool. We don't have anything. We don't have even the means to have a turntable. I could still sit here and go.
Yeah. Amazing.
And you could rap, you know what I mean?
Amazing.
And like we could transfer doing that back and forward. Somebody else who's good at that comes in, does that. So at some point, it evolves upward from there.
Yeah.
And for you, what was like that path into starting to create music?
I mean, probably, I think playing basketball, hip hop was always right there. We was listening to hip hop at the park, playing basketball. Rappers wanted to be basketball players. Basketball players wanted to be rappers. So it was always like the left and right hand. Allen Iverson. Probably the answer is probably Allen Iverson because it was like I was obsessed with Allen Iverson, and he was hip hop. I mean, I was just talking to someone about how like. How the Jordan 1s were banned from the NBA.
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, they were banned. And Nike was so smart, they paid the fine every single night so that Jordan could keep wearing them.
Wow.
So it was like the greatest marketing strategy for Nike ever.
Sure.
Because they were like, yeah, we'll just pay the fine, but it's like a walking billboard.
Yeah.
Because everyone was talking about the controversy. And the reason why I got banned, if I'm not mistaken, is because it had 3 colors. And before that, you could only have 2 colors on a shoe.
Huh.
Like all the Converses were 2 colors, like the Dr. J's and the Magic Johnsons and all that stuff. And Jordan wanted to sign to Converse. So much so that like there's even a story that he was like, who's Nike? He didn't even say Nike because it was just like, he was like, what is Nike? You know what I mean? And that's how unknown the brand was, like before Jordan. You think about like how crazy that is. And it's like, but yeah, so what's more hip hop than that? Like your sneaker getting banned, or Allen Iverson, you know, after the game during press conferences refused to wear suits. He was like, nah, I'm going to wear like an oversized hoodie and like Tim's. And like David Stern was having like a heart attack. Like, yo, what is this? And, you know, so he was like, you know, the tattoos, he just was the embodiment of hip hop. So I think he for sure was, no, you know what? The Ninja Turtles. The Ninja Turtles is the correct answer because they were the first ones to rap. They were the first. That was the first people I ever seen rap. So it's actually funny because hip hop's not even like a black or a white thing. It's a green thing. You know what I mean? It's like the Ninja Turtles was doing karate, eating pizza, and rapping. And I always look at Master Splinter, Rick Rubin, and Phil Jackson as the same person.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. So I don't know. Well, I'm just trying to put those. Like I could see. Like I don't really know Master Splinter, so that to me is foreign.
You don't know the Turtles?
No, not really.
Really?
Yeah. And obviously
amazing.
Phil Jackson and Rick, I could see a connection with like just the mentality, the approach to coaching, like talent. But yeah, no, Master Splinter and the Turtles for me was not. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what I had at that point in time. I mean, I watched like all the Nickelodeon cartoons and stuff growing up, so it was like more in that capacity. And then some of like the Disney kid shows and stuff like that was on TV.
Nice.
But I was outside a lot.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but I don't really have a great memory, especially for like my childhood years. Like I would try to ask people, what's like your first memory? When was your first memory? And like for me, I feel like it's like 6, 7. You know what I mean? I just did an episode with Chuck English the other night, and he was like, oh yeah, I could probably remember 2 years old, like around there. And I feel like, fuck, I got nothing from that. So for me, I don't know, you know, I'm sure I loved the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
But it was like before my memory's able to actually like hold on to that for me. Like I don't have recall for that.
That's very interesting because I was so obsessed with the Ninja Turtles that I referred to my back as a shell for quite some time. And also shout out to Chuck English. That's my guy. But what I want to say is that's a good sign that you don't have memories. Because there's even something in scripture. I'm not a Bible thumper, but there's something that says like, you know, it's almost like good thoughts don't even hold on to memory. Memory is like almost like a lot of times like trauma based. And a lot of times the reason why we have the memory is because a lot of times we haven't forgiven. So we're still holding on to like resentment and hatred of certain moments of being traumatized. And we started to live in our imagination. And that was a way to survive during the trauma.
Makes sense.
But the imagination is a wicked place because it lies to you, and it gives you an identity that's not yours. They give and I always, now that I've went and forgave the people who traumatized me, I realized that it was safe to come out of that. It's like, come out of the imagination. It's okay now to come back to reality. But a lot of artists and creators, we were traumatized at a young age, and mostly by our mothers. Yeah, I said it. and we went into our imagination as a defense mechanism. So I encourage everyone, especially men, to go and forgive their mothers, because they don't realize that they think they love them, but there's resentment a lot of times. Not all, but most. And that's why any man who has anger or is emotional, they actually are their mother. They're grown men who are moms. They are their mother. Isn't that amazing?
That's a wild concept.
And the reason why they're their mother is because their mother turned them away from their father at a young age. The same way that Eve turned Adam away from his father. And recreated the child in her image. So that's why you have men walking around like women. Because they are their mom. And when you never overcome your mother, you end up marrying your mother. So most men marry their mother. And the reason why that's an issue is because if they never stood up to their mom, they're never going to be able to stand up to their wife. And the cycle is going to happen again to their children. And their children will be recreated in the image of the mother also. The man has to stand up to the woman and not make the woman his God. The reason why we're all in a fallen state and we're messed up is because we've made the woman our God.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah. And that's what Adam did. Adam made Eve his God the minute that he believed her. Because even people who don't believe in God, even atheists, they believe in something. They believe in science.
I have a hard time with laying down where I'm at in any of that. Like in terms of like, for some time, I guess I would say I would side with atheism. Like I don't necessarily believe in God. I don't necessarily believe in. I can't say I don't necessarily. I do not believe in God.
You do not.
Yeah, no, I don't.
What's your relationship with your father?
I mean, I always had a fantastic relationship with my father. He passed away in September.
This year?
Yeah.
Just recently?
Just recently.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's been a rough few months.
All right.
You know, and it's just that's why when we first reconnected before we started, I was like, man, there's been a lot going on. There's been a lot going on.
Did he believe in God?
You know, I don't know. I would assume yes. I'm Jewish and like was raised Jewish, but even from a young age, it didn't connect with me. It was something that I felt like I'm doing this to be supportive and to be connected with my parents, going to a temple, right. Being around. Like, I like the community, just like any religious environment. I like the community generally. Like, you could find great people, you know, really sweet people who have great interests and just interesting people who believe in that thing. So it brings them all together, which is cool. And for me, it's just like, cool. We don't have to talk about the religious reason why we're here, and we could just get to know each other as people, and like I could really like you a lot, and it has nothing to do with the fact that you're super religious and I'm not. Right. You know, that's how I've always approached life. But it's like something I just never resonated with me. None like I guess I'm just a skeptical. You know, like the idea of where all this originated and how much information became combative. Where it's like, no, you're wrong and I'm right, and we're gonna kill you because I'm right and you're wrong. And the history of that is so fucking crazy to me that I'm just like, to hell with all this then, you know? Like, if this is, we're all going so crazy over this, we're fighting over land, we're killing each other, we're telling each other you're bad, I'm good, blah, 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 you can't do this, you can't. Nope, I'm not buying it. There's literally not one. I guess maybe I would say, like, if anything, like Buddhism seems to make the most sense to me because it's just so fucking peaceful. You know what I mean? And like, that's the state of mind I try to just live in at all times and help people come to, because it's like, we can, you know, we could literally just choose to be living in that kind of thought process and stay there. So we could talk about that a lot, and it's not something I necessarily need to hang into, but I think my dad believed in God. I would say he did, you know. I think that, you know, if anything, it's just something that was also then tied to his upbringing, but I think it was like his parents were Jewish. He went to temple with them. My uncle became a rabbi. His brother, which was like into their teenage years, I think, as brothers. And, I mean, I would go, for like the high holidays.
Yeah.
A few times a year. Every now and again we go for like Shabbat Friday night.
I just went to Shabbat.
Nice.
Last Friday.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Yeah, it's great. It's nothing wrong. It's not, like nothing wrong with it. I just never felt that it moved my spirit. Like hearing the stories were good. I appreciate the stories. I appreciate a lot of verses from the Bible. Like I feel like it gives me insight. It could be inspiring. It could be educational. I generally look to those things as like moral compass maps, where it's like, cool, I like the lesson in that. I can apply that to my own decision making, and I'm thankful that I have that new information. And I don't think that necessarily makes me have to say, oh, I'm this religion.
Right.
It's just like, cool, I appreciate that story, but at the same time, I have a lot of confusing information that comes from the source of that. Like,
give me an example.
Like I've heard that there's like 27 different books, like the original books of the Bible, and we basically have like the King James version of the Bible, which is a translation from an oral story written by somebody who translated the oral story. That in itself is fucking crazy to me, that we're all basing so much on a story that originated orally, translated by a human person to be, what became the 10 Commandments or what became the first books. Like, shit, dude, if you're telling me it's on my shoulders and I'm translating what you're writing down right now, I can make that shit as favorable to my life, my beliefs, and my ideas as I want. And you would have no fucking clue. You might not even have an idea how to read. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so much wildness to...
And give me an example of something that you think was changed to be favorable. Potentially.
I mean, I can't, because I don't have like specifics to say like, this.
But
this,
just in general, I know what you mean.
Like the overall concept of the origination of the Bible being to some degree, and I could be butchering that, and that could all be bullshit because I don't have, factual information about the history of all that stuff. But from my understanding, that's where it starts, and it just never resonated with me. Like the stories sounded like they were exaggerated stories that you could like use as like folklore to inspire people, the same way you could talk about like Spider-Man going into a city and there's a villain and he does something, and I think in a lot of ways those things reflect one another, because those stories are probably mirrored off of a lot of like Bible type stories where there's a hero and there's a victim and there's a villain and there's a reason that this all happens, and then there's a conclusion that gives you information that you can then apply to your life and make decisions based on the new information you have to hopefully live a better life. Right.
Do you think that we are spirits?
I have a tough time with that one too, man. I mean, it's something that I would say, if anything, I would have to say yes. But as time goes on, and as I get older, and as I just see how much shit is changing with technology, I'm so conflicted by all that stuff. I don't really have conversations with too many people to go this deep and just talk about it often, or like who hang in there and are willing to go down the path. But like, it's one thing that probably made the most sense to me is that we have a spirit, or like a soul. I don't know if those two things are the same. Yeah. I've kind of viewed them to be the same.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's in theory or not, like the record label I started is called 21 grams because I was like told that, when you die, like the first thing to leave the body is like 21 grams worth of weight, which is the soul.
Wow.
And so I like the idea there, whether or not that's fact or not. I don't know if that came from like a movie or if that's actually like medical science or, but I don't think that you could prove that there's a soul or spirit, but it's obviously something I think we all pretty much believe in. But I honestly, I don't know.
Where did that come from?
Shit, right now, I don't know. You know, I mean, I like the scientific side of like biology, cells growing, evolving, creating an organism, you know, that organism evolving, us becoming humans, you know, or animals becoming animals off of like a bacteria that evolved and grew and do.
But you would agree that animals don't have the same spirit and soul that we do.
No. I don't agree. I think the animals do. I do. Yeah. I
Interesting.
do. Yeah. I think that way.
So do you think that cows think about going to college and becoming a musician and doing a podcast?
No, definitely not. There's something that we had, which, you know, for me, which I pieced together, the idea is like humans ate mushrooms and the mushrooms had a reaction with our brain that evolved our brains. Like, I don't know how deep you've gone down the path of like mushrooms and like mycelium and all this stuff that I forgot the guy's name. He's from Seattle. He's a really famous like mushroom research farmer. It's amazing, man. Like when you realize the power of those certain mushrooms and it's almost like the network that grows mushrooms is like something that exists around the entire world, and it's such a crazy network, and how that can translate to like monkeys that ate these mushrooms that had their brains develop in a certain way that gave them the ability to start, I guess I would say, thinking differently. And as that evolved over time, we had the ability to understand basic instincts. Oh, I need food. Oh, I need water. Oh, I need a place to live. Oh, there's things hunting me. I'm going to try to figure out tools that could, you know, kill something that could kill me. And we evolved through having to think about that to, you know, whatever the next layer of, you know, inventing fire or inventing a wheel and these things that now start to be like, you know, I have no idea how that evolved. I guess we're looking at like Ice Age and humans needing a way to stay warm and experiencing fire somehow naturally on Earth. Like if it's just a thunderstorm hit some kind of dry grass and a place caught on fire or forest caught on fire, and you just experience this phenomenon. You know what I mean? Like if you're a caveman type person who's never seen anything in the world besides animals and nature, like you're experiencing like a magic element, you know, and then they learn how to recreate that, and time goes on and we just start to develop these constructs of like language where we can communicate with each other. I think the originals hieroglyphics to draw images to show, you know, oh, there's my people or whatever, or these animals, and that documents like, okay, now we're learning how to communicate. Like something's in my brain that I'm going to try to share with you. So I'm going to like draw that, you know, and then eventually that becomes words, and we're going to create words so we can have basic sounds that create communication back and forth between two people. And, you know, long story short, that all progresses. We get to the point where we're thinking, we have, you know, capitalism, we have all these different things that have evolved for us where we think as humans we're supposed to live life this certain way. We're supposed to, you know, be born, have clothes, make money, go to school, buy a house, you know, all this shit that obviously like a cow is not thinking on that level, or right. A chicken's not thinking on that level, right. You know, and I always have been super fascinated. It'll be something that if I live long enough to change careers multiple times, I'll eventually get to like either marine or just like, I don't know if there's a name for it. I'm sure there is, like just to study animals. This has always been something I've been super fascinated by. And I have no idea, like I'm a big scuba diver. I love the ocean. I love like just seeing the world. It's a whole, like literally there's an entire other world that exists under the water.
That's for sure. That
people don't really have any perspective of besides, cool, I like sushi, you know? and like, but like you realize like all that stuff exists in a certain way. Like there has to be some form of conscious effort going into this system, you know, it exists for a reason. For me, obviously with dogs, because like we've trained them to be our best friend type of animal, they realize like we're not necessarily a threat to them. We provide them food, we provide them shelter, like we help them if they get sick. So they have this like idea of looking at us with like a certain amount of my responsibilities in life are covered by you, you know? So like I'm good. But to me, like if you look at a dog, to me, I feel like you have like the same experience of looking at a human. Like you have a soul, like looking back at you.
Amazing.
Yeah. You know, at least for me, I've always connected with all kinds of animals. I'm a huge animal lover. And like that to me, yeah.
But I think that when they die, they just go back to the dust.
And see, that's how I feel about people.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So for me, it's
So
like,
you think a human and a dog is same?
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It's, you know, I have no, to me, I have not had enough reason to go, there's a difference, you know, like I don't see like a heaven, a hell, I don't know, you know, logically, I can't compute how the human soul, where does it go? You know, like we all have these ideas in my mind. A heaven is like, oh, I still look like me, but I'm this like floating angelic fixture somewhere in the clouds somewhere. Like that can't be.
Do you have perfect peace?
I don't know what that is.
Do you ever feel like something's missing? Like when you're alone and just sitting. I don't know if you meditate because you mentioned Buddhism, but or just sit with yourself in silence, which I would call prayer, but some people call meditation. Some people just are sitting with themselves, which a lot of people can't nowadays because we're so overstimulated. We need things playing at all times.
Yeah.
But sitting still with yourself in those moments of silence and stillness, is there a yearning for something?
We're going deep. So I haven't I haven't necessarily sat in like a blank slate moment of reflection mind like that. I would say ever since I was probably like 9, 10, 12, like 11, like my wheels just started turning and didn't stop, you know? And so there's always like things I'm thinking about, which at this point are largely like related to work or, you know, now slightly shifting towards like personal goals, which is like, okay, having a family, where do I want to live? You know, like for 12, maybe 13 of the last 15 years of being in LA, I've been in like head down in the studio, making music every day, 6 days, 7 days a week. Before my parents moved back to LA, I was literally like working 7 days a week. You could call me at any fucking hour of the day. I would be there. If I just finished a 20-hour day and somebody wanted to work in 2 hours, I would be like, cool, where can I get coffee? What kind of candy can I eat? I got to get myself up and going and be available, you know? And only until recently have I started to pull myself out of that, like just like such blind focus, you know? And when I was a kid, like before this whole obsession with music as a career happened, I was obsessed with music as a listener and just loved all the time, had music all the time, basically from like when I woke up to when I went to sleep. From a CD player at the Walkman type thing at the early age to first like mini disc type player to first iPod. Taking tests in school, music's always on. Walking around, music's always on. Walking home, music's on. Listening in bed, music's on. You know, like it was just, my parents loved music. My dad would play like Italian opera or Sade, stuff like that. My mom was a Bee Gees, James Taylor. Like I was just, it was always around, you know. Even in my house growing up, we had like a speaker system that went through the whole house. So my dad would like literally wake us up and be like Andre Bocelli playing in our house. Wow. It's amazing.
That is amazing.
So I had a relationship with music from super early, and that in a lot of ways takes you away from being in your own head because you have a thing that like a source that's giving you something to focus on.
Right.
But in another way, as a more so mixing engineer, but as a critical listener, I've also learned that has now applied as like meditation for me. So when I'm in the middle of mixing something, it's less about having conscious thought about the specific decisions. I mean, there are certain things where it's like, okay, cool, this frequency is like rubbing with me too much, or there's not enough low end, or the stereo image isn't, you know, there are certain things, but a lot of it just becomes trying to feel what's happening and trying to create something that gives me some kind of feeling, you know, that is inspirational to me. So music has become something that occupies my time. And only recently have I started to like not have music on in the car.
Nice.
You know, or like I'll lay in bed, but man, it's like all the TV shows you can watch and try to keep up with, all the streaming platforms, you know, people like I keep in touch with a lot of people and friends in different states and people around the world in different time zones. So I'll be talking to people. Shit, my girlfriend's in Australia. It's a 16-hour time difference. I talk to her As soon as I wake up, I sleep in. I usually wake up at like 9 in the morning, 9:15. She's already awake. It's like 5:15. She's already up and running. I'll go work, my day, whatever. 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. She's like getting off work. We hop back on the phone. We could talk till 2 in the morning. So like I have made less and less and less time for myself as time goes on to really like sit and reflect on that.
Yeah.
For the longest time, it was like, man, I wanted to be like president. And like a lot of my time that like I thought like when I had open time to just freely think was about like improving problems in the world. Like that's where my mind goes when I have free time. So like to circle back to like having peace, I feel like, yes, I have peace. Like I could die at any moment, and like I'm super thankful for every minute. Like it's been awesome. The good, the bad, the crazy, the wild, the fun, the sad. All those emotions I've experienced, I have an understanding of. I'm thankful I've experienced them because it's given me some wisdom. And like the things that take away my peace are seeing like, damn man, there's still so many fucking people that are struggling. There's still so many people that are like dealing with health problems, dealing with mental health problems, which is like the biggest one for me that like is a super sensitive subject.
Why is that?
My dad had depression, ultimately like took his own life. Like is something that has been.
Wait, your father?
Yeah.
That's who he. That's
in
how
September.
He passed in September.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, for me, it's a super serious fucking subject.
Right.
Because my dad was my best friend.
Yes.
My best friend for my whole life. Like,
absolutely.
I rolled with him fucking everywhere. Every day when I was younger, we had a ranch. Like, we drove from our house to the ranch. Like, dude, all the time. Fishing, horseback riding, traveling, you name it.
Yeah.
That was my guy. So I witnessed the complications of mental health from, like, first person perspective to the closest person in my whole life. So that's
at what age did you start to notice that?
Probably like around 20.
Okay.
Something like that. And like my dad would kind of claim like he did a good job of like hiding it, keeping it away from us. I mean, when I was younger, like again, like I don't have the memory for it. I think he had different issues based on different parts of his just life experience, but those are things that I look at. Like I wish that I could help people who felt the troubles that I felt going through those problems. It's really difficult to find places that are like a helpful place, helpful environment for somebody who's having like a serious mental issue. Because if you're looking at like places you can go, and not, this gets like super dark and deep, so that didn't mean to run this long,
this is
but
all that I care about.
It's like if you were having a problem and you call like 911, doesn't really know how to deal with that. You go to like an emergency room, they don't really know how to deal with that. You go to like a mental health facility and they're like, hey, this is like a place that is open to from anyone that could have been a murderer, a rapist, drug abuser, or just a person who's literally having a mental breakdown because their brain is not computing reality for them. And you're saying like you have to put that person in the mix with the other people in a place where everybody's having this fucking break from reality. Like that does not fly, And then I also watched like the shuffle game of like, what depression medication are you going to take? And there was like probably half a dozen or more different depression medications that I watched my dad like cycle through, where like his personality would change pretty significantly on any given medication. So like there's no real answer other than like, try this one. Oh, that made you really tired? Nope, let's go to the next one. Oh, that one made you pass out? Okay, cool. That one's not going to work. Oh, that one made you really aggressive, really angry, really short-tempered, but you don't feel as sad, or you don't feel as... It's crazy. You literally are just like a drug rat being put through the system to try to figure out how you can help. Yeah.
And none of that
it's insane, man.
None of that, the sad part is none of that's going to cure it.
Yeah. And for me, I love music so much, it's taking me away from everything else.
Right.
But now it's like, damn, man, have I like, I feel like I made my mark. I've accomplished all my goals a long time ago. I honestly felt like I accomplished all my goals that I like set out to, as far as like, I never even really planned to have a studio, you know, or be an engineer, you know, like those weren't my childhood goals. I didn't even fucking know anything. I didn't even know, when I was a kid, I didn't even know the difference that there was analog and digital recording equipment.
Yeah.
That's how little I knew about music equipment.
Yeah.
I just love music. It's an obsession, you know? And so like it caused me to fold any other things that could have been to do music. But it's like, now, fuck, man, like that shit's super heavy for me. And it's really pressing on my mind to figure out like, okay, cool. How could I help provide more resources? How could I help provide other things that would benefit people who've been in these situations or currently in these situations, more resources to be successful with their outcome, you know, because it's no reason why it shouldn't be possible that those are the case. But like, I feel like, you know, our pharmaceutical industry is super corrupt. So it's all about profiting off of people who are in trouble, and shit, man, it goes sour, you know, and that shit is hands down like the most difficult thing I've ever had to deal with, experience in life, and still navigating that currently. You know, it's been great just like seeing people. That has been bringing me joy, you know, especially like having like 16 or so months of like COVID and being restricted and not being able to socialize and not being able to see people up for, you know, am super close to, and all the complexities of like not wanting to be around people because, you know, too extensively, because I'm moved in with my parents a year ago to spend more time with my parents and to make their experience with COVID a little easier, to be able to bring groceries home, go do things for my parents if they needed me to, so they didn't have to leave the house. And most importantly, just to spend time with my parents, because they're like my two favorite people on the fucking planet. Now my mom, like, is literally my favorite person in the world. But it's been a difficult time to figure out what to apply my time to going forward from here. Personal life is something I've always kind of put off. Like, I had an awesome girlfriend. I'm sure my work like was pretty much like the main reason that I never really focused on making our relationship better, and ultimately it just crashed and burned because, you know, I mean, again, like the obsession with music. So it's like, now is it time to step back from that, figure out how to rebuild the puzzle a bit, and like, what does that mean, and what does that look like, and where does that look like? And that's all stuff that's been on my mind, especially since my dad passed. It's been like, okay, cool, like time's ticking, you know, so like don't waste any time. And yeah, I think right now that's been the most traumatic thing I've ever experienced. And so it's like, I you know, as you were talking before, it was like, I haven't really experienced trauma. Like, I've had friends that have died. A friend in high school like killed himself. Like, there's people, but it was always kind of like at a distance. Wasn't really something that I was in the know about, or so it didn't have as real of a feeling as something like being around my dad. And so now, you know, this time period has been like a lot of reflecting on how I'm spending my time with my life, because I do believe it's like pretty much to dust when it's my heart stops. Is, you know, I've always just said like, chuck me out of a helicopter somewhere in the mountains, like let my body just be animal food, I'm good, you know, like that's where it was meant to be. Whatever happened in my life has been super peaceful for the most part, you know, and I'm just appreciative and thankful. So, you know, I'd like to say, yeah, I have that type of peace. You know, I think the complication and the peace dissolves when I look at what happens in the world, and I look at like my friends that I want to be, you know, achieving their goals or more successful, or provide them, you know, all the things that they can possibly want out of their life, you know, or having a family and, you know, fulfilling things that I hope to have in my life. But for the most part, you know, I think that I have X amount of time. What can I do with my time? You know, how can I be the most impactful? Where could my time be applied to be helpful? And I go through a lot of that in times of silence, You know, like when my world slows down, rather than meditating or praying, that's my mind's still in like problem solving mode. You know, what's the best way to accomplish this, or what's going on in the world, where are we going, what's the place to be, so that, you know, when time catches up, I'm standing in the right place and I'm available to take that moment and do something with it, you know.
Do you think we have free will?
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, I think a large part of that's based on like financial position, because if you can't cover the basics of food, water, shelter, providing for your family, if you have a family, then that puts a lot of stress on you to make choices that go outside of your free will, other than, you know, somebody who decides like, cool, I'm going to go live in nature and like learn how to live off the land, and if I have a family, we're all in that format together. So you have, for the most part, free will if that's like the style of living that you're choosing. You know, like you obviously don't have money to just say like, oh, I'm going to go hop on a plane, go travel to Europe and go, you know, explore another part of the world. But you have free will and to say that I'm not going to sacrifice my life and my time to live in this like capitalistic system where I have to get a job, I have to live on a certain schedule, I have to pay taxes, I have to be a part of this system, and it's a really fucking difficult like 89 degree incline challenge for people who, you know, don't have any basically like help or are starting in a different place on that, you know, incline, to make your free will more available to you, you know. And it's also argued that like monks or people who, you know, have nothing or like choose to have nothing are like the closest, I would say, to having free will. Like they don't feel the need for things.
Right.
I think that's where free will basically comes from. It's like if you don't feel the need for things, you know, like if you have the things that you essentially need to survive, like if you're not like, oh man, or I guess I would say the want for things, you know, like, oh, I want this materialistic thing, I want a bigger house, I want a nicer car, or this or that, or jewelry, or, you know, I want to eat Wagyu beef, I don't want to eat some fucking, you know, hamburger, ground beef, chop, mix thing, whatever. Like, you know, that's all just as you learn what's more available in this world, you know. But free will's tough because we're given so many choices and so many options and so much shit is thrown at us, you know. But I do look at it like, yeah, cool, if I hit $10 million, which is my like financial goal, I could check out of like anything I don't want to do, I'm not ever doing, you know. And like I can set up my life to have like a sustainable house that like I can grow all my own food, I can live off of entirely, be 100% off the grid, self-efficient. Like that opens up, you know, I mean, obviously you don't need that much money to do that, but there are other things that like I want to be able to build and do with my time. But at the core of it, that's the goal, you know. It's like, cool, I'm gonna work towards building that type of house, that type of environment where I can just know at the base level, like this thing, as long as I give it my love, energy, and attention, is gonna nourish me and I can survive.
That's amazing, man. That is amazing. I really love that.
What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, well, my thoughts are that all thoughts are lies. All thoughts are lies all the time about everything. We've never had a true thought. Because the thought itself actually pulls us away from the present. The thought takes us to the past. Oh, I should have done that. Or the thought takes us into the future and makes us anxious and say, well, I need to do this before my time runs out.
Sure.
Before I'm, you know, dead, I need to do all this stuff. And I would just, you know, encourage everyone, and I encourage myself every day, to not fall for the thought, because the thought is going to pull you into the future and into the past and take you away from the present. And, you know, as people who believe in God, I think people say that God is in the present. You're in his presence when you're in the present. But even if you don't believe in God, I think everyone would agree that the moments of being in the present and the now are the best euphoric moments.
Yeah.
When you're listening to music or you're mixing music, like you said, you are in the now. You're focused. You are in prayer, to a sense. You're in a state of focus. The reason why people go to comedy clubs, because when they laugh, it's involuntary. You immediately are in the moment. No matter what you were just thinking about, when you start laughing, you're here and now. So yeah, I think that a lot of times, I always play this game with people. I say, when you first wake up in the morning, what do you do? Whatever you do first thing in the morning, that is your God. So some people grab their phone, some people go smoke pot, some people have sex, whatever. Yeah. And I would encourage people, and again, I'm only saying it because I need to hear it. So I'm just being a mirror for myself, to wake up and just sit with yourself, for as much time as you can before reaching for something, because in that sitting with yourself and getting to know yourself, by getting to know yourself and sitting in that stillness, is going to feel like you're dying. It's going to literally feel like you're dying because your ego is dying. And that spirit that made a home in you is being forced to deal with itself. The last thing that Satan or evil, or I'm trying to think of like a non-religious term, like just eat like evil or whatever.
Sure.
Like, the last thing, or ego, the last thing that the ego wants you to do is sit still. And you're going to be sitting there and you're going to be just urging to grab your phone. You're not even going to know why. You're just going to be like, I just got to go to get my phone, or I got to do this. But I'm telling you, if you can sit in that stillness and sit with yourself and not, and don't, Russell Simmons, I love Russell Simmons, but like meditation people will tell you like, don't think about nothing. You can't control what you think about or not.
Yeah.
So it's not about not thinking about stuff. It's about observing the thoughts, becoming the observer, because all we are in life are observers. We're just in the passenger side. We have no free will. We have no control over nothing when you really think about it. So our whole life is the passenger ride in this game of life. And all God wants us to do is to return back to being the observer. And what do little babies do all the time? Little small babies. They sit in a car chair and they just do this all day long. Observe everything. They are the ultimate observers.
Yeah.
And all God wants us to do is return to the innocence and be his child again and observe the thoughts and say, I have faith in you, Father, and I realize that I can't do anything. I literally cannot do anything of myself, and return to being the observer, but without connecting the religious stuff to it.
I mean,
it's important.
You still can't, still.
But it's important to just observe the thoughts. You just look at them like a movie.
Yeah.
You just look at them. Oh, it's interesting. You love it. You don't try to block it out. Whatever comes, you just look at it, watch it like it's Netflix. And the more, I've been, like I said, I've been born again for 9 months. And the way I was born again was I went and forgave my mother. And I went and forgave my father also. I didn't really need to forgive him because we always, like you said, we always had a great relationship. And so did my mom, but I didn't realize how much anger and how much of her emotions that I took on. And she tried to turn me away from my father. And because I made her my God, which a lot of boys, we make our mother our God.
Sure.
I made all women my God. So I was subjected to all women. So every girl that I ever dated was my mom for the past like 6-7 years. And I'm like, why do I keep dating mama? And the minute that I went and forgave her, it was amazing because I didn't realize how. I remember when I did it, I was shaking in my boots. I was so scared. And I was like, why am I so scared to just talk to my mom? And I was like, that's how I knew she was my God. Because why else would I be shaking in my boots like that?
Yeah.
This was God. And like, it had been easier to like forgive like Saddam Hussein or something like that. Like, do this to my mom. And Satan came to me and was like, do it another day. You're going to hurt her feelings. You're going to make her sad. She going to get mad. She, do it tomorrow, but all thoughts are lies, right? So I just was like, nah, I got to do this. And I just said, hey, look, I don't have the right to resent you or to hate you for trying to turn me away from my father and for traumatizing me at a young age with your emotional outbursts and your emotional way of disciplining. So I don't have the right to do that. It was wrong what you did, but I can't judge it and I can't hate you for it. I don't have the right to do that. And I'm telling you, the minute that I did that, the minute that I forgave her, it's like God forgave me. And the spirit that made a home in me, he was able to fight it. Because we can't fight spirits in this physical, So God had to take away that spirit and gave me back my identity. And for the first time, because I did it in front of her, it's like I got my courage back. Because whoever traumatizes you, they strip you of your courage. And that's why we become what we hate. We don't realize that a lot of times. Like, the minute we hate something or somebody, they control us. They control us because us hating them now, we actually take on that spirit or that resentment. So the minute that I went and did that, the girl that I'm dating, we immediately stopped having sex out of wedlock. And it's funny because you were talking about a long distance relationship. We're in a long distance relationship, and it's been a year, a little over a year, and it's been so amazing because it was like God said, "Oh, I'm gonna make sure you guys have to talk about things."
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? It's a whole different dynamic to a relationship.
Because if we were seeing each other all the time, we would have still been like having sex probably and like just doing it the wrong way or living with each other before marriage. Scripture says not to have sex before marriage and not to live with one another before marriage. And I couldn't agree more. I think that this year of us forcing to have 2, 3, 4 hour long conversations is like, and I'm only saying that because I know you can relate to that.
Oh yeah.
And it actually makes you build on a whole different level. Like, you know what I mean? It ain't even about that. It's more about like, yo, we can like have conversation. We can, we can fellowship or whatever. So and it was funny because when I did that, she was like, what's going on? Like, are you with someone else? Because we were doing it the wrong way at first. And she was like, yo, like at first, like I saw Satan come out of her because it was almost like women realize that they control men with sex a lot of times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And vice versa. But for the most part. And the thing is, women actually want men to say no. They're actually testing the man like Eve did with Adam. The woman is looking for a man to love them like a father. We're all yearning for a father's love. And the women are yearning for a man to love them like their father. In the sense of leading them with love. And that's what I was saying about restoring the family and restoring the order, is that women actually, aside from what the propaganda and the agenda is out there, women want men to be men again and step up and do the right thing. But why would women follow men who ain't doing the right stuff?
Yeah.
If they having sex out of wedlock, if they're being slut makers and doing all the wrong stuff, why is a woman gonna follow that? But a man needs to overcome the woman so that we can help the woman overcome the serpent, according to the Adam and Eve story.
Sure.
And I know it's a super hot take, but if you believe in the Adam and Eve story, and that goes for Jews and Christians.
Sure. Yeah.
And Muslims. My father's a Muslim. And all three religions started with Genesis. All of them. They all acknowledge Genesis. Now, they have little, small potential
Variations
differences.
sure.
Yeah, a little bit. But not really. They actually create more of the differences than what's actually on text. But, so according to that story, which feels true to me, not because it's written in scripture, because I agree with you. Anyone who says that the scripture is the word of God is incorrect. It never says that. It's the word from God, but it's not the word of God. And I know it sounds like a semantic, but it's very different.
No, yeah, it is different.
Because I'm going back to your point of someone receiving that and then potentially writing it to, would you say, benefit, or you used a different word?
Like self-serve your
Yes.
interests, essentially.
So that's why it's very, very important for even Bible thumpers out there and everything to realize that the scripture is the word from God, not the word of God. Because even the New Testament says that once you're born again, the word of God is written on our heart, because he turns our heart from stone to love. And scripture also says that anyone who has anger is a murderer. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Anyone who has anger is a murderer. And I agree. You can't trust anyone who has anger. Do you have anger?
Not really, no.
I've never seen you have anger.
Yeah, really. I mean, obviously, like, I'll get angry. I don't even know if angry is the right word, as much as I would say I would get, like, defensive if, like, somebody were pushing me or pushing someone else in a situation where I had to step up and be defensive for myself or for that person.
But would that make you angry?
That's what I'm saying. It's like I don't know how you would necessarily differentiate the emotion, but like if you were trying to fight me, like, I'm gonna have to be defensive. I don't know if that necessarily means that I'm gonna get angry, or be defensive, but in some ways anger may trigger what pushes the defensive mechanism. So I don't necessarily, for me personally, but outside of that, or, obviously I get angry at situations like, watching, regardless of who George Floyd is and his personal history and what people know, facts of this or that, or this police officer, or whatever the case may be, watching one person lean on another person's neck until the person dies makes me fucking angry. You know what I mean? Like, that is a situation that causes me to become angry, So are
you angry at the situation, or are you angry at the man?
Both, essentially. I would say both. I mean, I'm obviously angry at the situation because I don't feel like any human person or any animal really should be treated in that regard, and that any person should have the ability to do that to somebody, let alone like somebody in our structured system that's supposed to be somebody we are supposed to be looking to for safety, looking to for support. Like, it's a direct violation of the protocol that you're supposed to be providing your community.
Let me ask you something. So, do you think that is making you angry, or is that showing you that you have anger?
I would say it's making me angry.
So, that situation's making you angry, or is it showing you that you have anger?
I don't necessarily know how I'm
Did you have
differentiating that.
anger before that situation?
I mean, it's like historically you're just like stacking on events. You know, I don't know what the first event like that I experienced. Like I was too young to really understand like the Rodney King situation. If I look back at that in situation, it makes me angry that existed in the same context. So, you know, it's more like it's built off of situational events that make me angry. You know, so I wouldn't say I had anger before that. You know,
So you didn't have no anger before.
I mean, I can't
before
remember. You know,
George Floyd.
No. I'm just using that
Or
as an
Rodney
example.
King.
I'm just using those as examples.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know. Sure, if somebody broke a toy of mine or something, you know, like I could assume that would have made me angry. You know, like I had this thing and it was mine. And I treat all my things super fucking like OCD with respect. Everything, pencil, whatever, microphone, you name it. If I give that to you and you give that back to me in a broken state, I'm going to be angry. You know, so like those things create that type of emotion, you know, for me. And so I don't know, you know, at what point those first experiences for me, probably something to do with like food and like
Yeah.
not wanting to eat a certain food or being angry I had to eat a certain food as like
At who?
I mean, I would assume my parents, you know,
Right.
because those were my food providers at an age
Right.
where I couldn't provide food for myself,
Right.
you know, so indirectly they're the victim, but I also didn't know any better.
They're the victim?
Well, yeah, of being like that.
So you don't think you're the victim of why you were able to even understand what anger was in the first place?
I have to think about that.
Isn't that amazing?
It's a lot of layers to the question. No, I mean, you know, it goes both ways. I meant that like they're the victim of the situation because like if I didn't like something, like obviously my parents, like it's not common for like somebody I don't know to just like walk into my life and be like, oh, here's the food or the thing that you wanted. Like your parents weren't willing to give that to you. Like I also was too young to even really know much about that. Like I don't know what created that, you know, like I think about that often, like when it comes to me having kids, how are my kids going to respond to like food? Because I was a super picky kid when I was younger and I don't know what caused that. I can't like look back and pinpoint anything. I was super difficult with food, super picky. I wasn't open-minded to trying things. And as I got older, you know, whether it was different girlfriends who had me try different food or different friends who encouraged me to try different food, family members who encouraged me to try different food, I expanded my taste for food and I realized like, damn, when I was younger, I didn't eat 80% of the food that I eat today. 90% of the food that I eat today, I would never even look at. If I had pasta that had like green, like parsley, just
chives
over the top of it, I would send it back because I would order and be like, hey man, like I don't want no green stuff, like literally no green stuff on my bowl.
Yeah.
You know, so like, I don't know what caused that, you know?
So where did you learn to be angry?
I don't know. I guess it's just a matter of like those like situations that caused me to feel that I guess that something that would make me feel like I had to be defensive, you know. Did
you ever see anyone get angry?
Yeah.
Who?
I mean, I would say my dad was like my like first example of seeing somebody be angry. I mean, he was an entrepreneur, so like he had, you know, whatever conflicts and things would be in business, I would see him be angry being on a phone call or something like that. You know, like those would be probably my earliest memories of like experiencing somebody who was angry, you know, and like be off the phone and just still be like riled up in anger, you know. But
what made you think that was anger?
I don't know, I guess just like literally school educational like teaching of like, you know, literally like my as we're talking about anger, like my mind goes to like those images of like cartoons or like illustrations where you're like as a kid you're taught like anger looks like this.
Yeah.
You know, happiness looks like this.
Right.
Sadness looks like this. If you're feeling this way, like point to the thing, and you know, like that, I think is your initial imagery to connect like emotions and feelings to what you're seeing, you
Right.
know?
Did you ever feel that the anger was, did you ever feel like the anger was towards you?
I think in a similar way to how I described feeling angry, like if I, you know, if I like took something of my dad's and like brought it back in lesser condition, I could see like he would be angry at me for something that I did,
Right.
you know? So like that would be, I think the
Was it
reciprocation
anger
of,
or was it disciplining you? Or did you think it was the same thing as a kid?
you know, I couldn't
Can't
tell
tell
you. Yeah. I mean, like I could look at it and see it one way or the other, given, you know, obviously both happened. I'm sure there was discipline and there was anger, you know, depending on what the situation was. But, you know, I do my best to like let go of all that shit.
Right.
Like I really like just mentally
Yeah.
make effort to like not carry that stuff, you know, and not carry like negative.
No, and you can't, and it's right. But it's interesting to think about the inception of how
Totally.
we get this way.
For sure.
And I think it's important for us to realize how we got that way. That way we can understand more about any other situations like Rodney King or George Floyd or anything.
Sure.
Because a lot of it, if we really went back to inceptions of things, it would help us understand it more.
Totally. I mean, you know, that's something that I'm curious. Like, I have no idea if this is going to be relevant or not, but I'm curious to see. I mean, I have gone into like my YouTube nutritional study, you know, and I have like my YouTube doctors that I look up to. And like there are certain foods that I have come to understand, like especially broccoli sprouts seem to be like a food that replenishes a like molecule or a nutrient in your brain that can like help you have better memory and have you like recall more of your memories. Because for me, I feel like, I don't know when this happened, probably in high school, and from then forward, and especially from like working on music going forward, like I feel like my hard drive has been so over full, operating on like 100% capacity, that it's just like a random access thing to literally like what's going to stick and what's just going to be gone forever, or like will come back when I see like a picture of something, you know. But at this point, like,
but it's good though. You don't want to hold on to it. It's not to want to regenerate them. You don't really want to. You don't want to hold on to anything really, but to understand the inception of why we became
totally
the way we became.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here to say that there's a way to overcome it and there's a way out.
Yeah.
So, you know, because I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends aren't religious and everything too. And, you know, they'll deal with a lot of stuff. And I'm always asking these same questions, because when they start to understand, it's so funny because they all say the same thing that you said about my parents were victims of me first lashing out. But I say, why aren't you the victim of them? Not saying that it's their fault. They did the best they can. That's where the forgiveness comes in. But we learned it from somewhere.
Yeah.
So, and it's not to blame our parents. This whole thing is not like my whole spiel is not blaming the parents. But it's important that we forgive our parents so that we don't go into our lives doing the same thing.
Totally.
And making it a loop.
Yeah.
And it's important for men to understand, because most men who are dealing with these things, we know naturally something's wrong. We know that I shouldn't be feeling this way as a man. I should be logical. I should be rational. There's no reason that I should be dealing with this stuff. And artists, we just like, artists will smoke weed or do this to get away from it and distractions and stuff like that, because they're just like, well, I'm creative, so that's why I'm in tune with my emotional side and this and that. But I'm telling you, we don't have to suffer no more. You do not have to suffer no more. That is suffering. That is like, you talking about animal cruelty. This is spiritual cruelty.
Yeah.
People do not need to be going through this. And I'm telling you, if you sit with yourself in stillness and allow the ego to die, allow that spirit, allow that identity that made a home in you, that is not you. That is not your identity. That was imposed onto you. And a lot of times it was imposed onto us by our mothers. And if it was imposed to us by our fathers, their mothers did it to them. And I'm telling you, when you do it, you're actually able to love your mother and all women properly. It's not from a state of like, like, to be honest with you, the only reason why we even have sex is because of anger. Because anger awakens the emotions. And all emotions and all feelings are wicked. Because all emotions and feelings are your ego. You feeling any way about somebody saying something or doing something is your ego.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with something, but for you to pass judgment on someone, especially when none of us got it right, we all are dealing with our own whatever, we're all the same. So we have no right to judge anyone. We can disagree with it. I don't agree with child molesters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I can't hate them for it.
Yeah, it's a tough position. I understand what you're saying. It's a tough position to be in when you take on those level of seriousness, like those level of like serious offenses. But
because he can't help it.
Yeah, no, I understand.
The same way that our parents couldn't help it.
Yeah, that person was
they
taught
couldn't
to,
help it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird one, man. The human experience is a complex motherfucker, especially for people who are dealt that kind of a deck.
Yeah.
It's like something like I don't know if they really ever get a chance to study a person's life that creates that type of trait, that type of action, that type of lifestyle, especially on like the more serious end of like, like a rape, child abuse, murder,
right.
or somebody like that, like somebody that goes to like the furthest, deepest, evilest thing you can do as a human, and what psychologically is the makeup that like did that from an early age or a certain experience or a compounding thing, like something that wasn't addressed. The power of the main thing I've come to learn though, man, honestly, and it's the root of all this stuff, is still like conversation and being able to like express something in words to the other person. Like if you feel a certain way, if you have a trauma from a certain person, like there's a certain level of, which is what I used to do a lot and I stopped doing. It's something I found a lot of value in though, is just like journaling, being able to write those things down, because you're able to like express the thought that you have in your head in a way that it doesn't necessarily have to be that it could be hurtful. Like if we had some kind of issue and I was telling you, like I didn't want to tell you something that you were doing that was making me feel a certain way, so I'll just write it down. There's like a certain layer of relief that comes from that. There's obviously nothing that actually is satisfying to the degree of actually just having a conversation.
Right.
And just sitting down expressing like, hey, this thing's had me mentally trapped. Like I need to express this so that we can move on from this moment, and more so for me. But, you never know what that is going to return from the other person.
But that's the only way.
Yeah, it really is. It's the most powerful thing you can do. You start learning. For a long time, I was always, in relationships and friendships, like a passive person in that, if something was done that bothered me, I would usually just, keep it to myself, be frustrated by it, have some form of like a mental checklist thing about that. Eventually, if that happened so much, I might talk about it to somebody that was like a friend of mine indirectly about the person that was causing the problem. And I had a hard time confronting like the actual person in that I didn't want to make somebody feel bad. You know what I mean? And instead I ate that. And like I lived in relationships like that were really damaging for me personally.
Absolutely.
because they didn't understand that, you know what I mean? And I would look for like the right time in someone's day to like have a conversation about something. And like if I was like, oh man, you're really frustrated, today's not the day to like, kind of like how you said about going to have the conversation with your mom, and you start talking yourself out of it, or you see these things and you're like, oh, today might not be the best day to go, you know, this person's exhausted, whatever.
And do you think that is a direct trauma response?
I don't know, because I don't have any, you know, like I whatever my makeup was historically made me like a really caring person and a really thoughtful person. But is it caring for people to not be honest with them? Probably not. You know, it's a complex one, I guess. You know, no, in that you're not helping that person become a better person. Yes, in that you're not necessarily saying something that's going to be hurtful to somebody. There's a balance there of like how much are you. Why do you think it's hurtful? I don't know. I guess we all have a certain way we want to be perceived and behave to other people, and when you're outside of that, it puts you in a place where it could be, for lack of a better word, like hurtful. If somebody's like, oh man, you know, you say that you're such an honest person, but I saw you, you know, take an extra quarter out of this thing and not tell this person about it. You know, like if that's something that's going to really bother you, then you may live with that internally, and you may be the other type of person to be like, dude, I saw you do that. Why'd you do that? And immediately like it shifts the responsibility of like that being on me now. Cause like I saw you do something that was negative, and I'm going to live with that and to not call you out. And then now I'm taking that on versus calling you out. But then that may make you feel bad that you had somebody who called you out on something. It's like to me, a complex boundary of like how to behave in that. But is it more important to be nice or to be right? To be right, for sure. To me, you know, I think 100% of the time. So I just struggle with that because I like to also be a nice person. So it's finding a balance, you know, or finding a tact, because I'm a pretty blunt person. So I don't necessarily say things that are in the sweetest manner, right? If that's the case, and that's been a problem in my past too, is sometimes the way you say something can be hurtful. You know, like you could still be right, you could still be doing the right thing, but not have to do it in a hurtful way, you know. And for me, I think that comes with thinking, but then like thinking about what the actual situation is, what you need to necessarily say to somebody. But then you get caught in, for me, as an overthinker and a deep thinker, right? I get lost in my own tunnel, and then you start to overthink, and you overthink the overthinking, and then you realize like, fuck, I'm never actually gonna even say anything because now I'm like 20 miles down into this tunnel and I don't even know where I'm at. All thoughts are lies. Yeah, so it's like it's a challenge. Yeah, you know, it's a challenge, I think. But at the end of the day, 100% of the time, I feel like it's a matter of being right over nice. I would rather live in that environment, that society, that culture. You could tell me 100 ways to Sunday if I'm doing something wrong. I would rather be called out for it so I could learn, correct myself, operate better, rather than you be nice to me. You know, if there's a way to do the right thing in a nice way, that's how I prefer it to be, because I just feel like, why would you not choose to do something nice? But you would if you have other options.
It a lot of times, most times, contradicts each other.
Yes. Yeah.
And unfortunately, most people, so they don't have confrontation, choose to be nice and not right.
Yeah. 100%.
I think,
we're having an awesome conversation, man.
We really are. This is amazing. This is very nice and needed.
I do want to circle back into some like questions I have for you in regard to like more of like your life path that we were talking about before, because there was some things I've found super interesting, because you hit like, you know, obviously some home runs with like the Nick Cannon moment, or linking with Shafiq and Malik. And
Nick did that, Malik, not me.
What do people call him, Shafiq?
No, but I'm just saying, because because like the situation we had during the, like I said, the big boy interview thing. Yeah. So I'm just kidding.
No, but you know, like those are like some really prolific, like right places, right time kind of moments. Yeah. But even to go back a step, like when did creating music come into your life, and what was creating music? What were you creating music with?
Well, I think it was probably just being completely honest, it probably was College Dropout. When I first heard that and was like, when I like found out that like he didn't know how to play any instruments, but he was producing everything, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I could be a music producer and not know how to play anything. And yeah, I think that was the moment where I just was like, oh, well, I'm going to figure this out, because it seems kind of easy to do this. And it still blows my mind to this day. Like, if I get paid for a beat, like I just got paid for a beat like not too long ago, and it's literally just the loop of a sample. Like, I literally didn't even do anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's subjective, because like you curated, you took the time to discover the music and looped it in a way that was your taste, and like it resulted in.
Yeah, it just still feels like funny kind of.
Yeah,
but
sure, no, I get it.
Like if it literally is like no drums, like I literally didn't even. But anyway, but shout out to that situation. But yeah, like College Dropout was definitely 100% like, whoa, this is it. And I even remember like telling my mom, because there was a Sam Ash close to and I used to just stay there all day long, banging on the machine. I know the workers were probably like, man, this kid he ain't gonna buy nothing. He just in here all day. And yeah, so I think that was the first moment. And then I was like, okay, well, I need to get an MPC and a record player and vinyls. Like, this is crazy. And then, yeah, I remember telling my mom, like, I was like, yo, I need to get this drum machine so I could be famous. I didn't even say to make beats. I didn't even like know exactly. I just was like, this is why I need to be famous. And I was like, this will be my birthday, Christmas, Groundhog Day present, like everything in one. I just have to have this. Cause back then, like an MPC, was like, I don't know, $2,000, something like that. That was like the Dr. Evil price for, like we wasn't, we was like middle class, but still like, kids be so into a bunch of stuff. Your parents sometimes don't know what to invest in.
Sure.
Cause one week you're talking about,
cars or whatever, clothes, making a clothes line. Or
and then it's like
starting a restaurant or who knows.
Yeah, whatever. And it's like, so anyway, so then basically, I just, and then what I did was I just went and bought all the vinyls that he sampled for College Dropout, like the Shaka Khan, Through the Fire. And actually the first thing that I did was shout out to Dame, because the first song that I ever heard Kanye rap on was We Are the Champions, which was on, Dame put out an album, I think it was for State Property, the movie, or I don't remember. It was like a soundtrack, but like the first song was We Are the Champions, and it was the first time Kanye ever rapped. And Dame's like talking on, and he's like, this the producer on the rock. He rap better than most rappers. Anyway, but that was the first one that I tried to redo.
Yeah.
Like I was like, okay, let me try to like reverse engineer how he did this. Okay, he took the Queen record, he sped it up to this tune, and then I tried to do the drums and everything. So yeah, I just tried to like recreate the whole like College Dropout era of beats, like before dinner every night.
Damn, man, that's cool.
Yeah,
it's crazy that you put that together, like that you had the thoughtfulness of like looking up the records, going to figure out like what the tools were that you would need, learning how to do that at, I'm sure, a difficult educational standpoint, like is probably like a pre-YouTube tutorial level, you know what I mean? Like we got super easy access to shit now. Yeah. But
they had Scratch magazines. Like there was you ever seen Scratch magazines?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it would tell you like Just Blaze uses Ensoniq ASR, or whatever, or Alchemist, and like you know, and
so you had some information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fast forward, because you mentioned Chuck. I don't know if Chuck remembers this, but I think one of the first times I ever like hung out with him was at Alchemist's crib, and I was like working on the MPC with him, and I remember like I don't know if it was Chuck or if it was Mikey Rocks or what, but if someone was like, "Yo, you could use Alchemist's ASR 10," because I used the ASR 10 doing that, also with the MPC, and I was like, "What? Like, what do you mean?" And yeah, so but anyway, that was just like it just made me think about that, but yeah, so that was kind of like
So MP, do you remember what model MPC?
the first one I got was just a 1000.
Okay.
It was like a little
Floppy disk
blue and
or
red.
SCSI?
It was
zip
compact
disk?
flash drives.
Okay. Yeah.
Like little,
Yeah. Like 16 megabyte.
yeah,
type?
yeah. And you could just like chop stuff, and I would chop the drums, and you know, just the classic James Brown, take the snares and the kicks and the the ad libs, and make your own program. And then I was like, then I think I got the ASR 10 on eBay because it was like mad hard to find them. And I remember actually a year ago or 2 years ago, I was going to Sunday service a lot, and I remember we was at the office in Calabasas, and they were like transporting this one ASR 10 from the studio to the Sunday service every morning, and then back and forth. And I'm like, there should just be like another ASR 10 that like, because they're heavy.
Yeah.
Like, what I mean? They're like whales.
Yeah.
How heavy they are. And like super, like just the drives is super sensitive. But anyway, yeah. So then I ended up getting the 2000 XL, and I used that for a long time. And even here, like, yeah, I used to bring the XL and stuff like that. But now I've just been using MPC Live.
Yeah.
Which is really fun.
Yeah.
And really, really cool. And I've actually, what's so funny, I know I'm like super like name dropping and stuff like that, but I don't really mean to do that.
Life,
but
man.
yeah, but like the past couple months, I've been like kind of like working with French Montana and showing him, like he's like, yo, I want to learn to make beats, and like we've been just like honestly, like I was showing him stuff, but now like he's showing me stuff. And like, you know what I mean? And but it's amazing, like his ear of like the vast stuff that he's listening to, and it's actually re-inspired me to kind of go back to like, like the sensibility of like New Yorkers, like being around Dame all the time, and recently hanging out with French. It's like there's something about New York, just sensibility.
Sure.
And like there's just like this, I don't know, but yeah, so like listening to different stuff and just getting back into the whole like boom bap sample kind of thing, because that's definitely what my heart is, and that's my thing. But I think I've definitely gone into the auto-tune, outer space, but so it's nice to always like come back home.
Yeah. For sure, man. The new song, I guess it's a clip. I'm assuming that song's not out, of the clip you sent me last night.
Oh no, that's out.
That's out.
Yeah. It's called Gemini. Yeah, that's one that's very like alternative, auto tune, like. But that's because I was listening to a lot of Queen and a lot of like Jim Morrison and stuff like that, because I was like, yo, Freddie Mercury was really like the first like rapper. You think about We Will Rock You.
Oh man.
He's like rapping.
For sure.
And it was just the biggest possible stadium.
Yeah.
Like, we will. And then,
dude, the initial, sorry to cut you off, but like the initial like cadence, the way that like when you hear the
yeah,
and he just comes in, yeah, dude, that's such genius. Yeah,
and it's so genius that it's probably the most played song, maybe potentially like
ever.
Yeah, human history, and it's no music.
Yeah,
it's just drums. Yeah. and his voice.
Yeah.
And it's not even drums.
There's
It's literally
there's like a guitar
at
that
the
comes
end.
in with like a
Yeah, at the end though.
Yeah.
But after he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an outro thing.
Yeah.
But I'm saysaying for the most part.
Yeah, it's drums and him.
And more genius than that, it's what everyone has.
Yeah, 100%.
Stomping
Yeah.
and clapping.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant.
Yeah,
But
on so many levels, man.
so many levels. So anyway, so that Gemini song, we just released. Dame Dash executive producing it, and the next album, we just released it. That was more like that vibe of like, just like some, because there's definitely some like super duper rapidy rap stuff coming up, but I'm just trying to like, just whatever, just like have all vibes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Be artistic, man. Be creative.
Yeah.
So when you were, was it in Florida that you started getting MP record player, ASR, all that stuff?
Yeah.
So you're what age?
16.
Okay. So like 16, you're starting to get like the equipment together, just start developing yourself as talent, learning these skills. You putting together beat CDs, and you just decide I'm going to LA from Florida. Is that that was like the first real like career type move? Was LA's the place I got to go?
Yeah, pretty much.
And was there something that landed you specifically at the P&B?
I mean, it was
shop.
No, I just came out. My sister was living out here.
Okay.
And I was like, well, maybe I'll just come out here for like a week or two and whatever. And I was already pretty much like, I already kind of knew that like school, like the regular life wasn't like but I also look back on that and I think that had a lot to do with my parents separating when I was in high school. So it might have been different if they would have stayed together. They're still legally together, but but they separated, and so and I created like a little studio in my mom's crib, and I would have people come and record, but they were like street kids. You know what I mean? They were like, they was getting wild. And I remember the cops raided my mom's house and found 18 guns under my bed.
Whoa.
Yeah. And that was like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You moving with your auntie and uncle in Bel-Air. That was like that moment of like, because it was really scary. Like I remember getting arrested, and they, but the long story short, because we were all under 18, they didn't have a search warrant, so everything had to get dropped. Thank God.
Wow.
That's how I know there's a God, because that
would have been a whole different life path.
Man, that was so crazy. But that was where I started to like, record people, and like that was like the first time I had people just, like rapping on the beats. And that was like, I felt like RZA. That was like my Wu-Tang Clan. I was like just honing the skills. Yeah. But coming out here, and then I did the internship for Nick, and then I kind of just after that, shortly after is when I met Malik. Yeah. And then
you go to the studio. You're in the studio with him and Kanye.
Yeah.
Did music get made that day?
They made music. I was just sitting there like,
what the
I'm
fuck,
not even supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? But I was in there the whole session, like 8 hours or whatever. And I'm just like in awe. You know what I mean? And it was him, his cousin Tony Williams, Malik, and and they were like listening to Bink beats.
Shout out to Bink, A. Shout out to Tony Williams, B. I never met Tony. Bink is awesome. I've been a huge Tony Williams fan for a long time. Yeah. That dude is incredible.
Yeah, he is.
Absolutely incredible.
He is.
Cool. So you guys were listening to beats, and you were just pretty much just chilling. that day ends and what happens? It's just like, cool, thanks for having me through there. And
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Malik was just like, yo, let's just keep building, you know, like let's just keep rolling. And we did just that. We you know, they started working on Twisted Fantasy, and you know, Malik would like call me from Hawaii and like just like literally put the like I probably shouldn't be saying this stuff because I need to probably speak to him, but because we haven't spoken, but like he would just like I felt like I was a part of the whole Twisted Fantasy. Like I'm listening for hours like of like Gorgeous getting made and like Cuddy like he made it to where like I was there.
Yeah.
And I just was like, yo, this dude's like, you know, he made like my childhood, like, you know, yeah. So it was just like that whole process. And then anytime he'd come to LA, you know, he'd like come over. And I was still staying with my sister and everything. And he would come and we would just vibe. And he'd just be like, yo, we just did this song called Monster. And he's like telling me to, you know, and I'm just like, whoa. And I remember he showed me the intro song, Dark Fantasy, the Mercy, Mercy Me, that Mercy Alago, that's me, the first year that I blow. He had the whole thing written as a poem that he had written.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa. And I'm not even hearing the song yet. The song not out.
Yeah, of course.
He's showing me like and I'm like, whoa. And so it was so crazy because like I felt like I was like, yeah, it just was crazy. And and I'm thinking about it now and I'm just reflecting on it. I'm just like, you know. So it was awesome. So yeah, so that whole process was just like, you know, and then after that, but also I'm just like, you know, I'm sending them beats, I'm doing whatever I can, you know, like I'm rapping, I'm doing whatever, and I'm like, yo, check this out. And then right after that, they were done with that album. Me and him produced. Well, he got asked to produce an album for War. You know the band War.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yo, Hassan, come produce this with me."
Wow.
And I'm like, "What? You mean like I sampled them?
Yeah.
How am I gonna produce for them? You know what I mean?
You guys do what you do, and then I'm gonna take what you do.
I'm just take it and give it back to you. And he was like, no, we got this. And so that was a wild adventure. Every day going to Universal down there in Santa Monica, and you know, every night just like grinding and working on stuff like that. And the dude Lonnie Jordan, he's like the lead singer of War. He was amazing, awesome. The dude Jerry Goldstein, who I think manages them and whatever, he, you know. So that whole experience was nuts because it was like the first time where I'm like every day we're in a huge studio and they're like prepping the MPC for me, like someone's coming in. I'm like, what? Why am I? You know what I mean? And like I should be doing this for somebody. And no, but I, you know, so Malik always, you know, from that first like thing, it was just like it was like right into the driver's seat.
Yeah. And
it was like learn on the job. And yeah, so another reason why I'm just super, you know, thankful and appreciate. It's crazy because I'm thinking about all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's good to reflect on it. But yeah, so that was kind of like that was a good chunk of time. But through that period is when like yeah, like, you know, those Alchemist stories with Chuck and like Mikey Rocks and you know, there was a lot of like that kind of stuff going on around that time period too. And yeah. And then that kind of led to, after that, I was like I think because that was like the first time where I felt like I did a lot of work and didn't get paid. And I didn't really care because I was still just like, you know. Yeah. But I think there was like an element after that where it was the first like bad taste in my mouth of the music business.
Sure.
And And I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna just start working on me. I'm gonna do my album. And so I kind of started to like start really making songs at that point. And then the Yeezus era, I remember going to New York. For those sessions. I remember Travis. I remember that's when I met Anthony Kilhofer for the first time. Che. So that was another cool time. Sahai. Who I gotta shout out to Sahai too, because he was really one of the first people to do a song with me as a rapper.
That's big.
Yeah.
That dude's amazing.
Yeah, he is. And GLC too. GLC was the first person to rap on a song with me. But Sahai also was, yeah. But so like that whole Yeezus era was cool. Going to SNL, watching him do Black Skinhead and New Slaves, and like seeing Kim pregnant with North. Like that whole time period was cool too. And again, yeah, Malik, so.
What was the like the transition to starting to make your own music and starting to rap?
Well, at that time, it just was like coming out of like ego and being like, yo, fuck Universal. Like, I didn't get paid for this. They didn't even put out the songs. Like, we worked on all these songs for War for mad long, and like nothing even came out. And now I see how like that's just a regular.
Yeah, that's the business.
That's just the business. But at the time, I'm like,
fuck you guys.
Yeah, I was angry. You know what I mean? I was like, all the stuff that we've been talking about. I was emotional and was
rightfully so.
So I just was like, for a moment, I just think I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do my own thing. But then I was still rocking with Malik. So when the Yeezus thing came around, it was like, well, I'll still go do that for free.
Yeah, of course.
So I was like, yo. So I remember like just being like, yo, can I add drums to I Am a God, or like, I remember hearing like Blood on the Leaves for the first time and being like, just that whole process. And then kind of just like, through that process, like building with Malik and with Burundi and like trying to like figure it out as far as like, like, yo, could we get like a publishing deal? Could we, I gotta make something shake. You know what I mean? So it started to like, as that evolution happened, it was like, and and I look back at the time because I'm like, man, I think that it's all a trickle down effect, right? Like, Kanye was the head of the tree,
yeah,
right? And how he was handling things for everyone, then it affected all the smaller groups of that. So, it's like, obviously if things would have been more functional from the top, I think other people would have been able to have been like more self-sufficient and kind of like help their smaller bubbles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would just hear different things and I'd be like, man, like that, if that would have went through, that would have helped our, like Malik and his group of folks, like that would have helped tremendously our situation or our growth. But because it was like one step removed from him, and it's not his fault, but it's just like,
it's just the way it happens.
It's just a trickle down effect of like how you can see directly how stuff is affecting now this incubated situation.
Yeah.
Just kind of just navigate through that. And then I think at this point I'm just like, I'm just like hustling. I'm taking beats up to A&Rs that I've met through whoever, and I'm like, yo, can I come up and play beats at the office? And I'm going up to Def Jam, and shout out to Noah Preston, who I annoyed so much and would just be like, but you know what? Noah was the only person, because, actually, this is a good story. Malik set up a meeting for me to meet with no ID. And this is actually an amazing story. I don't know how I've never told this story, but he set up a meeting for me to meet with no ID. And I remember he was just like, yo, just play 3 beats and 3 of your songs. And that's it. Like, keep it, you know. And I was like, all right, cool, you know. Like, and I remember having the meeting, and I remember it was him. It was no ID, Noah, and Tyrone Davis, who's also amazing. He still works with him, I believe, at Capitol. And I remember playing the 3 beats, and then I was like, is it cool if I play some songs? And he was like, yeah, go ahead. And then I played the 3 songs, and he was just like, you got more? And I'm just like, but Malik said only play 3 in my head, you know what I mean? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, go ahead, play more. And I was like, okay. And so anyway, I ended up playing for like an hour.
Wow.
And I'm thinking like, that's a good sign. You know what I mean? And and I remember at the end of the meeting, he was like, so you don't got, that's it? You don't got nothing else? I was like, and I probably should just stop at this point, but I was like, well, I got a poem. and he's like, all right, go ahead. And I go, he goes, what's it called? And I go, Sand Nigga. And he goes, what? And I go, it's called Sand Nigga. And he goes, okay, go ahead. So acapella, I do Sand Nigga. And it's just like, it just starts like so abrupt. It's just like, you ain't nothing but a photo bomber, cock blocker, trash talker, name dropper, sand nigga, we the new black. I mean, fuck it, we all African. I'm straight from Iraq. Screaming Mesopotamia, first human nation. Mesopotamia, first civilization. Fuck all you racists, be civil in this nation. Fuck you till you free, babe, escape from the Mason. And I don't think it went over real well. But the point is that it was like, now I look back on it, now that like Dame has like super loved and empowered Sand Nigga, and like I've done it like on Big Boy and other interviews, stuff like that. Still probably not perceived very well, but I'm just like, yo, there was nothing more hip hop than that.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of how people feel about it, even how people are going to feel about it right now, like, that's what I felt when I heard Cop Killer for the first time, or I heard, just the like the audacity.
Yeah.
It's like that was what hip hop was.
Yeah, of
you know
course.
what I mean? And even if you disagree or hate it or want to fight, that is what, so anyway, but Noah, I remember Noah was like, there was a song that I had played. It was me and GLC, and Noah was like, hey, yo, take my card. Cause I fucked with you, bro. Like, that was dope. And he goes, yo, I just signed a kid named Logic. He was like, yo, I think that beat with you and GLC, I think he would like that beat. And I remember being like, I remember like, I probably should have like, and it's so funny because years later, me and Logic actually connected. But I was like, well, that's my song.
Yeah.
And I probably should have done that, but anyway, but shout out to Noah, because Noah always, after that meeting, always let me come up to the office, play beats for Janae and play beats for Logic and who's that new Amir Obey or something, or he's like a singer. But anyway, he always showed love and like, he's a good dude. But I don't know where that was in the story. Oh yeah. So anyway, just like going up to offices, going up to, and then that led to the the Good Music Studio getting built over there, No Name, and then like me just with Che, just hitting Che every day, like, yo, can I come through? Here's a pack of beats, just always hit. And he was another one that just always was responsive and always like, yeah, come through, let's meet, blah, blah, blah. And then I think I just was like harassing him so much that I think he just was like, all right, like, I was like, yo, I need management. You want to, like, and he was like, yeah, let's just go ahead. Let's see what happens. And yeah, and during that time, it was like, Tiana Taylor picked a bunch of beats, and I'm like, oh, this is dope. And then it was like years of like, well, what's going on? And then, yeah, so, but it was super helpful because like he definitely, me even just being associated with Che, like definitely people were like more receptive, and just being up there at No Name as much as possible was like, because there was mad people coming in and out of there.
Yeah.
Not even good music artists, just whoever. You know what I mean? Like Los would be up there all the time. Yo Gotti would, I saw mad people up there.
Sure.
And then most importantly, Anthony Kilhofer had a room there. And then me and him just were vibing, and a beat that I gave him, he gave it to Cuddy, and he was like, yo, Cuddy recorded on it, blah, blah, blah. So there was like all these cool things that was happening at one time. I'm like, yo, Tiana Taylor picked 4 beats from Che. I don't know if Che got her the beats or if Noah got her the beats, but someone got her the beats. And Kilhofer got Cuddy that beat. So I'm just like, woo, it's lit.
Yeah.
Like, but again, it was like, oh, and Logic, Noah linked me and Logic together, and he had some beats. But then it'd always be like a sample clearance issue, or Tiana never put anything out for like that long period of time, and it was like that again was like a heartbreaking time period.
Oh yeah,
and that was recent, like, or and so that so that kind of was like was tough. And then I actually remember Che hitting me and was like, it was like Christmas time of maybe 2017, and he was like, yo, Ye in here making beats again. And I was like, oh, word, that's dope. And he was like, nah, it's not good, because all those beats that that were supposed to be on Tiana's, he wants to produce all of Tiana's album. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, whatever, like, and then yeah, and then that whole time of the listening parties, going to the Tiana listen thing, the Kids See Ghosts, going to Wyoming, and us working on some of the stuff. And
yeah, I remember talking to you like the night before or something like that, where you were like, I don't know, man, should I go to Wyoming? Should I not go to Wyoming?
Yeah, you were the actual like the.
I was like, dude, you gotta
like,
get on the fucking plane. What are you talking about?
No, that's so funny because you were definitely the. Well, because I was here. We was cutting the So that was definitely the. And I'm glad I did, because it was beautiful going out there. It was awesome. It was cool. But yeah, so that whole process, and then the biggest part, when I went to Wyoming that night, that trip, I saw Dame.
Wow.
Dame was out there. And Dame was like, yo, because I had seen him before that, but he was like, and I had told him that I was like working with, on some Ye stuff or whatever, and he was like, but I'm sure people tell him that all the time.
Yeah.
And he was like, yo, you really out here? And I said, yeah, I told you, and he's like, damn, all right. He was like, well, what you doing? I was like, well, I mean, I'm just working on stuff, whatever. He goes, yo, when we get back to LA, come through my spot. And I was like, I bet. And then as soon as I got back to LA, he had did something at the gallery, and I had came, and he was just like, I probably should have said pause right there. But he was like, yo, you was just in Wyoming, now you're at my spot? What the fuck? Is there 6 of you? Is that, you know what I mean? And I think he was just like, damn, like he's out here hustling. Like he's shaking and, you know, he's getting to where he got to get to. And then he was like, yo, I got like a studio here. Anytime you want to cook up or whatever. And then the first thing that we did was I did a bunch of stuff with GLC over there. And then I had just did a publishing deal with Warner Chappell. And I was like, yo, I don't want to email beats anymore. And they were like, the fuck you mean? Like, you're not even like a poppin' producer. And I was like, yeah, but that's what makes it cool. Like, it's like a Andy Warhol Factory 14 thing. Like, you got to come to these installations to hear these like beats.
Yeah, of course.
This was like in my brain. And then, and they were like, well, okay, like, where are you going to do it and how are you paying for it? I was like, well, I'm going to do it at Dame Dash's and you guys are going to pay for it.
How'd that go over?
Well, they gave me my advance check and I mean, it was my money. So technically they didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
I paid for it. But I just love the idea of like a Warner, like a music, like conglomerate meeting with like the music outsider, like the king of like against that.
Yeah.
And putting both of them like in this world where like now I'm gonna bring all the creatives and all this in one room.
Yeah.
And now see what happens. And it was awesome because like what we did was we made a movie to the beats and we used colors because people say they have synesthesia, that they see colors, whatever. So each beat had a color. And when the beat would play, we had QR codes on the wall and you would scan your phone on the QR code and place a bid on the beat in real time.
Cool.
So it was like a beat auction.
Yeah.
And I got to control the lighting, the you know, everything about the aesthetics was my brain.
Yeah.
So I was like, yo, I want y'all to see that I can produce more than just beats.
Yeah.
I could produce the room.
Yeah, like the event.
Yeah, and more importantly, instead of me coming in and giving you a folder of beats, now you're walking inside of my brain.
Yeah.
Now, you coming to this event, this was like my brain.
Yeah.
So it was like, whoa, like, okay, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I would always like tell people. I was like, yo, I want to help down to the like album release party, to the visuals, to the outfits, to the merch. Like, I have more to offer than just these folder of beats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I have like what I'm doing here with this. I want to do this with like
other artists.
Tiana's whole I don't want to just like give her beats and like I want to be able to do this whole thing, or at least offer my opinion.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So yeah. So we did that at Dame's, and like all these people came through, and he was like, and Dame don't like giving people like credit. He was like, yo, bro, you low-key did like a better event than I've ever done here. Like, yo, this shit was cracking. You had like 400 or 500 people. You had the radio come, like, like mad people. Like, and he was like, yo, shit was cracking. And he was like, yo, you should do it again. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do it again. He was like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to put out my album. And he was like, you got an album? And I was like, yeah. He goes, I thought you just did beats. You got songs? And I was like, yeah, bro. He goes, man, play it. Play your songs. So I started playing the songs, and he's like, what the fuck? He goes, Kanye know about this? And I was like, I mean, I don't really push the agenda when I'm around him or those folks. That's the quickest way to get
booted,
kicked out.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't really do that. He goes, no, fuck that. I'm calling Kanye right now. And he literally called him and had him come. And he literally called him and goes, yo, you know about Hassan's music? And he's like, yeah, you know. And he's like, no, you need to come over here right now and listen to it. And I'm like, is this real? And then he's like, he's like, yo, Kanye gonna come and listen to the album. And I'm like, yo, I'm being punked. Like, there's no, you know what I mean? There's no way this is real. And then not only does Kanye come, Dame's like, yo, we gonna film this, Kanye. So I'm like, holy shit, this is about to happen, and I'm gonna have it on footage. I'm gonna have it filmed.
Oh, man.
Like multi-camera.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's another person on earth walking that could tell Kanye that and him be okay with it.
Yeah.
Like, who, like, I don't think there's another person. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you know, he's not going to tell Dame, like, you know, he's like going to respect, like, oh, man, it's Dame. Like, so I'm just sitting there like, yo, what the fuck? I'm like, not only am I playing the album, I'm playing the whole beat auction thing to him. And he's watching it. Dave's like, yo, watch it. Like, he's on his phone for a second, and Dave's like bumping him. Like, yo, watch it. And I'm just like, and we might have to insert that clip right here. Just him bumping him. We have to insert because it's too funny. And I just was like, yo, man, this is like, you talking about like fairy tale? Like, I felt the same way that he was doing that for me to him. I feel like Dame did that to Jay about him.
Yeah.
Like, sat Jay down and was like, no, you need to listen to Kanye.
Yeah.
He got more than beats, like, da-da-da. And I felt that way when he was doing that. Like, and it was just like, it was so, because of how much I care about the story. Like, forget me. Like, remove me from it. How much I care about that lineage of the Rockefeller story and everything.
It's like some of the most important music lineage in modern music.
Yeah, I'm just like, man, this is spaced out. And then like on footage, Ye's like, yo, I want to be on Sand Nigga. Like, and because that was Dame's favorite record when we recorded it, which circles back to No ID story. But it's all just funny, and it's kind of nice to be able to say it all in one platform, because I've never actually had the time or even the thought to kind of like look at it all. But it is kind of funny to look at it all. And then Dame was just like, yo, where do you want to put the record out? And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know, like, if you could talk to Ye about us putting it out through Good or whatever. And then but right at that time, it was almost like, because we had talked with Manop about some stuff and everything, but I don't know, I don't know if they were dissolving Good Music or something, but something was going on at the time. And then he was like, well, let's just go straight to Def Jam. And I remember we had a meeting with 2-0 from the interns, and they were like, yeah, whatever you want to do, Dame. Like, we'll do a partner deal with you, and let's do it. And then for whatever reason, there was like stuff that was slowing up with that. And then Dame was like, yo, let's just put it out, bro. Like, we waiting around for all this stuff. Let's just put it out. He's like, I'm fucking Dame Dash. He's like, we can go do radio. We could do everything. And we did. We put it out. And we went and did interviews. That Big Boy interview was one of the main ones that kind of helped. And yeah, and it was just, but it was funny because all during that process, like, I remember after Kanye came to listen to the album, Dame was like, yo, Kanye said you can go, you can come through his spot whenever you want. But he was like, yo, but he's like, don't. And I didn't understand it at first. I was like, why not? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, yo, I want to go. Like, I need that verse. And, but later on down the road, because I was going every week to Sunday service, but I understand why he said it now. And it was just a, I don't know if it was like I'll say things definitely seemed different after Dame came and did those interviews with me. When he sat next to me, and did them interviews.
Yeah.
Because Dame was like, yo, you got to think about it. The last person I sat and did interviews with was him.
Yeah.
So he was like, and I feel that things changed after that between me and, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we had like mad conversations like all leading up to that at Sunday service, at his office. He was like yo, actually funny story, the day DMX came to Sunday service, which was crazy because it was the only day that they wore all black, and it was so serendipity that DMX came that day. And I remember we went that day. Ye was like, yo, Hassan, do not leave Calabasas after this. Stay here. And I'm like, all right, yeah, whatever. He's like, do not leave. And he's like telling his management, he's like, yo, make sure he does not leave. And I'm like, yo, I'm not going to leave. Like, you know what I mean?
You told me to do this. I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Good.
And I remember we went back to the office and he's like, yo, Hassan going to play his album. And I played the whole album and like.
For DMX?
No,
or just for Kanye?
DMX didn't come, but
okay.
The reason why I brought up the DMX thing was, first of all, just rest in peace.
Yeah, I know, of course.
But I sat next to him the whole service.
Oh, man.
But it was crazy because when we were back at the office, he was like telling everybody, he was just like, yo, we got to do DMX's album.
Oh, man.
Like, this is DMX. And I just remember, like, you know, how much, like when he be saying, like, how much, like, things culturally, like, affect him, like Mobb Deep or DMX or, like, it's 100%, like, I could, like, see it in that moment of just private, like, you know, ain't no cameras on, nobody. Like, he's like, yo, we got to do this, like, for the culture, like, but anyway, yeah, so we was vibing. He's showing me sneakers and showing me, like, Matt Williams was also there, who's now the head of Givenchy, and
wild.
Yeah, he was there, and we, you know, he just showing me stuff, but like, and it was like, you know, it was like all love, but it did seem like after we did them interviews, it seemed like, you know, things
changed.
Yeah, it did. And I look back on when Dame said that, and I kind of was like, interesting, you know, but I'm not saying that, you know, because whatever, like, to me, you know, just as a fan, you know what I mean? That's like, he can do no wrong, you know what I mean? So it's like, but it's interesting when, you know, yeah.
To go full circle to how we started, I said, the Middle Eastern Kanye West.
Yeah.
Because minutes before you walked through the door, you sent me a clip of a preview of a TV show.
Yeah. Tell
me about that, man. That was crazy to see.
Yeah. Well, that clip is a real clip. When we did TMZ, Dame and I did TMZ, and that was just how he introduced me to Harvey, and I'm like, okay, this is funny. And so the show is loosely based on real events, especially the first episode. The first episode is called The Pilot Pitch, and in there I'm trying to pitch the pilot. So it's kind of like Seinfeld in that sense, but yeah, it's just kind of following Dame and I through the music business and through like the release of specifically the San Diego record and the controversy around that. And in the midst of all that, I'm trying to pitch a TV show. And the main person I'm trying to pitch it to is a guy named Rob Weiss, who executive produced Entourage and Ballers. And there's a scene where I'm like trying to pitch it to him, and he's like, so it's like a fake Entourage? Like, I already did Entourage. Why would I want to do this? And so it's really funny, and that's my man, and he's going to be like a recurring character. And,
cool.
And Dame, and it's kind of like Entourage in the sense of like Dame's kind of like Ari Gold, like, yeah, you know, in that sense. And so yeah, so we're gonna we're gonna do like a Dame has a network, Dame Dash Studios, but he just partnered with Fox Soul and with Tubi to kind of like premiere content. So I think we're gonna do like a premiere through all of that probably the end of January.
Cool.
Yeah, so we would do like a little premiere probably over at Dame Spy and just do like a screening and but yeah, the show is called No Offense. So there's a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of offensive potentially things in there, but you know, it's called No Offense. So yeah.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
Super exciting. I mean, what a story. What a life, dude, up until this point. And the wild thing is there's so much more to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Lord willing, man.
Yeah, it's exciting. So you're cooking. The second album is in process, complete already?
Yeah, it's in process. We're just going to keep putting singles out. We just put out the first one 2 days ago. And it's called Gemini because it's actually about everything we just talked about right now. We all have dual spirits. And we got to kill the ego so that the real us can live. And it's important to kill the ego before it kills us.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why it's called Gemini and kind of what that's about. And the whole album, even though it's called The Second Coming, it's really to let you know that there is no, Christians are waiting around for like the end times, but the second coming is now. It's us. Like we have to know that we have the ability to return to the Father now. We can be sons of God now. That's why Jesus came, was to return us back to the Father. Jesus said that all that are born of the flesh of the woman are dying, and we must be born again of the Spirit of the Father. So we have to overcome, I'll just say this. The only difference between animals and people is that animals overreact, human beings can overcome. And we don't have to resort to our animal nature or our, animalistic nature. We can overcome that. And that's the difference, and that's the beauty, and that's truly the gift and the grace that that was a sacrifice for us. So the album is really just about rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man and allowing the man to understand that he has to overcome the woman so that we can help the woman overcome the serpent. It's actually our only job on this earth, is to overcome the woman so that we can go through hell helping her. And more importantly than just going through hell helping her, not complain about it while going through hell helping her.
Yeah.
That's being a man.
I agree. I'll say we could probably wrap on that because that's great. That's a great conclusive moment. Just real quick though, I'll post things like in the descriptions for all this stuff, but places to find you, I'm assuming Instagram probably is the best place.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And is this Hassan Kafaf?
No, Hassan, thank God.
Hassan, thank God. Hassan, thank God.
Thank God.
And for people to look up the first album, looking on all the streaming platforms everywhere.
Yep, Mesopotamia.
And Hassan Kafaf?
Yep.
Yeah.
You can probably just type in Hassan Mesopotamia.
Boom.
And then Yeah, and then any other interviews and stuff, you can just probably type in Hassan and Dame Dash, and you can find some interesting, funny stuff.
Cool.
And shout out to this kid, man. What's this kid who makes the carrots thing?
Anwar.
Man, he's amazing.
He is amazing.
I've met him once or twice, and he probably doesn't know who I am, but I remember like the beginning process of this, and it's amazing. I mean,
the evolution,
like,
the growth.
This isn't even like a shot because I don't even know him really, but I'm just looking at the slippers here or the slides, and it's like everywhere. It's in Nordstrom's, everything, and I remember like so. Yeah, big shout out to
Anwar.
To him.
Funny story. I was just. I can't remember why, but I was just talking to my mom like last night. I mentioned something about him. I think because I have a shirt that I was wearing. I think I walked in the house. I showed her like I was wearing the shirt, and she said something about it, and I was like, I met him when he was like probably 15, 14, 15, with Casey Veggies and Josh Pease, who were like, it was like the three of them were like real tight, and Scheme, this artist that I worked with like for probably a good 3-4 years, and Scheme had Anwar. I don't know if it was him and who else, but Anwar was like doing photography at the time, was like in high school, and they came over to my apartment, which is like 3 doors up the street. At that age, it was like, and we were all smoking weed, and it was like their first time all smoking weed with us.
Wow.
Was in my apartment.
Wow.
And everybody just getting like to the point where it's just like passing out on the couch, just falling asleep because it's just like, first time experiencing anything like that, and at such a young age. That shit was so funny to me, man. So funny to like see those kids just come across my path at that age. And, same thing. Like, I don't know Anwar well at all. I just have been watching from a near distance and just be proud, of all these guys I've met who, you just see the accomplishments. Man. I mean, it's like I said at the beginning, like all those things you just described and whatever I've known you for along the way, it's just amazing. It's just, I love all this stuff so much. Just everybody's just doing phenomenal, amazing things, creatively as an artist. Like, this is such a hard walk of life. And to be persistent through the challenges and to keep coming out, reinventing, growing, and finding new levels of success, even though it may not be major financial success. You like start to look past that, and there's a lot of other benchmarks for success, and one of them is just longevity.
Absolutely.
Being able to stay, my dad always used to say, if you're playing poker, like, you need a chip in the chair and anything's possible. You know what I mean?
Wow. Chip in the chair.
So, so long as you maintain at least a little something to stay at the table, you could win at any moment. That's the beautiful thing about all this, especially music. You literally never know.
It's like hitting the lottery.
Yeah,
you never know.
Yeah.
That's why you play every week.
Yeah. But, like we're just spoiled to be able to do what we want to do.
No, for sure.
And like to live somewhat freely in our own schedule, in our own lifetime, and make our own decisions. A lot of people don't experience what life is like in that capacity.
That's true.
Amazing, man. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. I just want to say too, real quick in closing, that I just encourage everyone in what we were talking about, the serious stuff. I mean, it was all serious, but in the serious stuff, that as much as we can, be still and know, because when you get to know yourself, if you want to stop there, that's fine. But getting to know yourself, you will get to know your father more, the earthly father and the spiritual father. And sitting with yourself and getting to know yourself is where we can really overcome all of these different things that come up. And if people haven't done it, it will feel like you are dying. It's not good. So I'm not sitting there telling people like it'll just be beautiful. It's gonna feel like you dying, physically dying, because it's gonna feel like it's you, but it's a spirit that made a home in you. But it's gonna act like it's you, so you're gonna feel like something's wrong, like I'm dying. But you're not, and and we can overcome it. I'm only saying this because I was the most tormented. I was addicted to sex, porn. I was angry, emotional. I was, so I'm just saying that there's a way out, and it doesn't have to be about accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And, that's not going to do anything. Going to the front of the congregation and just saying, okay, I accept Jesus Christ. People still go home and are not right. So you got to understand what Jesus came to do, which is to show us how to forgive. Forgiveness is the only way out. And Jesus went through all that he went through to still say on the cross, when he was on the cross, he still said, after being tortured and beat up and hung on a cross, he still said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. And we have to have that same level of forgiveness because God has it for us.
Done.
Amazing.
That was beautiful.